Good evening, Wakefield. Welcome to the Wakefield Town Council meeting of Monday, October 2nd, 2023. Hereby call this meeting to order at 6:03 p.m. I'd like everyone to rise, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item number 3, attendance. I'm joined by my colleagues, Councillor Dombrowski, Vice Chair McLean, and Councillor Danahy in studio. We have Councillors Butt and Vincent joining us remotely. Councillor Smith-Galvin is in transit right now, and I believe will be joining us when she is no longer in transit online. Item 4 is executive session. I'll be asking for a motion to convene a possible executive session to discuss contracts because an open session may have detrimental effects on the bargaining position of the town. We have the intent of returning to open session at the conclusion of that discussion, either before or by 7 o'clock. Do I have a motion?
Motion to go into executive session.
Great. Second? Second. All right. Any discussion? No, we'll take a roll call vote. Councillor Butt?
Yes.
Councillor Vincent?
Yes.
Councillor Danahy?
Yes.
Councillor McLean?
Yes.
Councillor Dombrowski? Aye. And myself, yes. So that's a 6-0 vote to go into executive session. Good evening again. We are back from executive session and have returned to open session. We will be moving on to item number 5, which is public engagement. So we will take public engagement from folks in the room in just a moment. I do want to mention for the record, we did receive written comments from 2 individuals, from Stephen Howe, who submitted comments opposing the proposal for the 40B development at 0 Stark Ave. And also from Sue Langlois opposing the resident request we'll be considering later for flying of the Christopher Columbus Christian flag. So Sherry, if we could make sure those are included in the record. For public participation in the room, just as a reminder, we ask people to limit their comments to 3 minutes. When you do come up, please sit up at the microphone, introduce yourself with your name and address. And we'll start with Michael Constantino.
Hi, I'm Michael Costantino, 35 Stark Avenue. I originally just came here tonight to find out what was going on in my street and ask questions. But can I not ask questions?
So you may ask questions. We won't respond right now, but we'll certainly ask the individuals presenting on the proposed 40B development to keep those in mind and perhaps include that in their presentation later on the agenda.
Okay. I guess basically I'm just here to say I'm opposed to what they're proposing for safety reasons. And I'm prepared to fight that legally as far as we can take it. So that's it.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Teresa Melton.
I'm on the clock. I got 3 minutes.
You have to, well,
Can
you
I
can
pass
sit down
these out
first,
first?
and feel free to sit down first, state your name. Absolutely.
All right.
We don't
So-
start the clock when you get out of your chair.
Just checking. All right. So we had an incident on Saturday.
If you wouldn't mind just actually
Oh, I'm
stating your
sorry.
name first.
Sorry.
And actually, if you wouldn't mind maybe passing around the materials that you have and then sitting down and commenting
Oh,
so we
sure.
can get you on Zoom and on CAT as well.
And this is my car going down Stock Ave. And then this is what happened when the drainage pipe isn't maintained.
Okay.
So my name is Teresa Melton. I live at 26 Stock Ave. And I'm really tired of doing this, okay? We've been fighting this since 1978. That is a very long time, and I'm very old now. And I'm really tired of I don't understand what it is about the end of Stock Ave that everyone is so interested in. But I want to start with safety first to begin with. There's a need to discuss the safety of the taxpaying citizens of Stark Avenue. As we exist now, the street is the longest dead end in Wakefield, and you all know that. That's not a surprise. With that said, we all know that the fire chief had some serious concerns regarding the ability to get a fire truck down to the existing end of Stark Avenue, let alone the proposed extended end. So if you look, on Saturday, we had an emergency. The fire truck could not get down Stark Avenue. That is a huge problem. And then I was online and I saw that, so the lot, I don't have the lot number in front of me, 210A, W210A, I believe. So that's already called Stark Ave Village? Seriously? That was on the map on the website. To add to the proposed Stark Ave Village will accommodate 24 parking spaces for 12 units. This sounds reasonable until life happens and kids get cars, 3-bedroom units, or people have company. The turnaround that now exists incorporates an owner's property, which they are happy to relinquish as long as the street sits now. However, should the street be opened, they want to be compensated by the town for using their property for all these years. And will the town or the pending developer pay them and restore their property to the boundary lines? Now, from years ago, because I do believe that the people of Wakefield need to know the history behind opening Stark Ave, I want to ask a few questions. LLC James M., who is looking to develop this lot, stated that the runoff for the potential water issue would be directed to lot 26. This opens a huge complex issue since lot 26 was part of the Mardine Estates. Tom, you have to remember this. It was part of Mardine Estates.
I do.
Okay, with lot 24, which the town took. The town took lot 24. They did not take lot 26. But I do not know why, all right? But here we are, how many years later, and we're still talking about this. The town took that property because there is such a huge water retention area up there. All the water from Mardine Estates comes down through that area, and the town took that. They were supposed to take, am I off now?
If you
going?
could wrap up.
The town took lot 24. They did not take lot 26, but that was under the order of conditions. Am I correct?
The order of conditions said that the developer was supposed to give the land to the town.
Right.
Right. He never did.
But that didn't happen. So now lot 26 now belongs to a private person. When I looked it up, it is, under a private person's name. Okay? So when we were talking at the end of Stark Ave, what did they say? The drainage was going to head towards lot 26. So now is the developer looking to buy lot 26? Like, I don't understand what's going on. There is a ton of drainage up there. When you do not take into consideration who is going to man that, who is going to take care of that, if you look at those pictures, you'll see what happened to us. 3 feet of water. I had a lake in my backyard twice, not once, twice. And I did not have insurance because we don't have flood insurance because we don't flood. Guess what? That's what's going to happen to these people up there. It is not
Thank you.
fair.
Thank you,
Not-
Ms. Melton. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. If we could keep the applause down. Next up, we have Lance Kelly. Mr. Kelly, again, if you could have a seat and state your name. Yes, Mr. Dombrowski.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a quick question of town council, just to clarify something?
Sure.
But to your knowledge, town council Molinette, I'm not putting you on the spot to know this. Do you know whether the town does own this lot 26 that was just discussed?
No, it does not.
No, I don't believe we do.
That's up over there.
On the map.
But that wasn't an order of condition at the time, you're saying?
It was in an order of conditions, but the consequence of their not granting the land to the town was that the order of conditions was never closed.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Nope, thank you. Mr. Kelly, please go ahead.
Yes, my name is Lance Kelly. I'm at 59 Stock Ave, and I'm the direct abutter to this project. Initially, when Mr. Green wanted to build across the street, that I didn't have a lot of a lot to say about it, because I thought that, the man owns the property, he could build a couple houses and it wouldn't be that much of an intrusion. But having 3 houses across the street, having a development at the end of a dead-end street is totally a different story. Now, I think that the town should educate the people. I'm sorry, I had a medical problem and I wasn't involved in where I should have been. We're at the wrong place here. We're already to the state. And what I'm trying to say is that the town should understand that if we have less than 10% affordable housing, that the people that are making these decisions to stop builders from building 2 and 3 and 4 small houses or small developments, those people can turn around and go to the state and build a 40B development, and it really impacts the community. Now, I don't blame the developer, because he was shut down from building a couple of houses, and now he wants to build a whole development, which is a total different animal, but it's his prerogative because of our situation with the 40B. So what I'm trying to get across in my short 3 minutes, and I'm stuttering here, is that we should educate the people that are blocking builders from doing a couple of small projects, so they don't go to the state and build a giant project and really impact our city. And it's the street that we're on is a tough street. What I would recommend is that we have parking on one side of that street. I know myself, a year or 2 ago, I needed a medical emergency, and luckily the cars weren't in the position that the fire engine wasn't able to get to me, because I'm the last house on the street. And thankfully, the fire department at that particular time was able to get down the street and administer to me. But the other day, my son-in-law waited 20 minutes while the fire engines were administering medical aid to somebody else. And because that street is so congested now and it's so long and people park on both sides, you can't fit the fire truck. I can't fit my SUV through some of it sometimes when it's double parked. So I would ask the town to at least look into this and see if they can't do anything for the public safety to maybe make it more available. God forbid somebody else on the street has a medical emergency or a fire or whatever, that they would be able to access that property and administer to those people. So that is what I would like to just get across, that if we're
Thank you.
blocking people from doing small developments and they can tell us, well, that's nice, we don't need to deal with you anymore, we'll go talk to the state and we'll do a big development, it seems counterproductive to me.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayo, can we, if we could ask to keep the applause down so we could continue with the discussion. Mr. Mayo, could we send the requester to look
Yes.
into one-side parking to the Traffic
Yes.
Advisory Committee?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else physically in the room who is here for public comment who we didn't have on the list? Yes, please go ahead if you could state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Fanning. I live at 4 Pheasantwood Drive in Wakefield. I have a couple of questions and a comment. My first question is, I think, a very simple one, which is the vocational school is getting ready to start blasting the hilltop, even though actually it doesn't have the permit under the Wetlands Protection Act to even build the school. And blasting is a very expensive undertaking. In terms of Wakefield's share of the project, which is in the millions of dollars, which town budget does that money come out of? The money that Wakefield is paying for the school and the blasting, which town budget does it come out of?
So there is a budget line item for the vocational school. So there is basically a cost that gets allocated to the town, a per pupil cost for any Wakefield student that attends, and that includes both their operating budget as well as capital.
Okay. And is that part of a larger budget or an overarching budget? I know there's a town-wide budget, but is that underneath kind of the school budget?
No, so that is one part of the town budget that gets approved at town meeting.
Okay.
There is a larger vocational school district budget. That's not a town budget, though. That is the vocational school district, which is its own entity.
Okay. My next question is, so blasting is an expensive part of this project. I mentioned that the project doesn't have the permit from the Conservation Commission to build in that spot, and yet they're proceeding with blasting anyway, which is expected to start in about 10 days. So the lack of a permit has been appealed to the Mass Department of Environmental Protection. If they uphold Wakefield's Conservation Commission, who will then pay for all the blasting that was done? I understand MSBA does not pay for blasting expenses, so will the town just lose that money?
So I don't know the answer to that. I think that's something we can bring that question back to, or refer that question to the Northeast Metrotech School District.
Okay. And the last thing I wanted to say is a concern, which I'm one of the 18 citizens who signed a petition to stop immediate environmental damage, again, with the school proceeding with work, even though they don't have the permit. And I learned through the court proceeding that Wakefield's town engineer had been working with the project sort of behind the scenes to, alter the plans because they don't have the permit to build the way they initially wanted to build, which was to start building at Farm Street. So then the plan changed to start building around Hemlock Road, but those plans have never been reviewed by, as far as I'm aware, ZBA, Planning Board, and according to the project, that was all being orchestrated sort of behind the scenes through collaboration between the developers and the town engineer. And so my question is, what authority does the town engineer have to be working behind the scenes with developers without residents' awareness, without other committees reviewing the plans, and in fact actually undermining other town committees like the Conservation Commission?
So Mr. Mullen or Mr. Mayo, is that a question that you're able to answer, or if not, we can take that back?
Well, I'd have to challenge the premise. I don't think that the town engineer has been working to undermine any local board, and he certainly does not have the authority to approve any plans that have not been seen by, say, the ZBA, which made an appropriate finding to permit the project to go forward, or the plans that were shown to the Conservation Commission. What he can do, and he has been careful to do it, is to confirm that the calculations used by the vocational school are appropriate to ensure that the stormwater management system insisted upon by the town works there. We have very detailed stormwater regulations. It requires a lot of oversight of developers. So what you regard as collaboration, I would call oversight. He's been looking out for our interests to make sure that if and when a new school is built there, it does not result in excessive stormwater.
Okay. I will say I am concerned that although he is an engineer, I'm not sure that he has sort of the expertise to be doing that, and some of the evidence is the fact that a stormwater consultant was hired by the project to review the plans. And I think that also doesn't address the fact that construction plans have changed since they were originally presented in the public hearing to the Conservation Commission with, initially the sort of trucking and construction traffic going through, basically coming in off of a new road off of Farm Street to now using Hemlock Road that the two schools use.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are going to pause public engagement. Actually, Sherry, do we have anyone else online for public engagement? Sorry, we can't hear you, Sherry.
Yeah.
Oh, now we
I
can
don't
hear
know.
you.
Okay, great, thanks. Stephen Howe just joined virtually, so I don't know if you want to, and he's the one of the participants that sent in an email.
Mr. Howe, do you have any, we did receive your email. Do you have any verbal comments you'd like to add to the written comments that you sent to us?
Hold on, Jonathan. WCAT, can you make me a co-host, please?
All right. Do we have Mr. Howe?
Hi, yeah. Yeah, we do now. Stephen, hi, can you hear us?
We try that.
Oh, we
Yeah,
can hear
oh,
you.
we can hear you. Can you hear us?
How's that? Better?
We can hear you, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that.
If you wouldn't
Just,
mind just
you
stating
know-
your name and address before your comment?
My name's Steve Howe. I live at 58 Stark Ave, which is the last house on the right as you come down. I'm actually on the cul-de-sac, and the cul-de-sac is on me. So as I've said, joining others who have spoke, just in general opposition based on traffic and safety issues that seem to everybody in the community fairly obvious. It's a long, narrow street. I won't belabor that point, but my perhaps a little more specific concern is, about a year ago, we were talking about a same developer, different project down the street, and there seemed to be at least some agreement that if there was going to be a project further down the street, the end of the street should move to the end of the street. And that the town would abandon its easement on my property, take away the turnaround, and move it to the end of the street. And I would like to see that happen if this goes through, hoping it doesn't. But I think the end of the street is where the turnaround for everybody should be, not just an emergency T turnaround that might or might not allow certain vehicles to turn around. And I think if that doesn't happen, the circle in front of my house, which is actually an easement, part of it's an easement on my property, will become a de facto parking area. And it's going to be a huge headache. And even if that worst case scenario didn't transpire, I'm pretty confident it will, I'll have just more traffic turning around in front of my house and delivery trucks and whatnot, when in fact it's not no longer the end of the street. I don't understand why the developer would get a free pass on that. So I won't belabor the point, I think, unless anybody doesn't understand what I'm saying.
Thank you very much, Mr. Howe.
Yep, thank you for the time.
All right. Sherry, was that it?
That is it.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on then to item number 6. Just a couple minutes late, we do have a public hearing to consider an alcohol license and a common victualler license and an entertainment license for WXSS LLC, DBA Way Asian Kitchen. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing regarding 21 Broadway Street.
Okay, is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion from the council? No, we'll take a roll call vote. Councillor Vincent?
Yes.
Councillor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Dennehy,
Yes.
Counselor McLean,
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski,
Aye.
and myself, yes. Thank you. Welcome. If you wouldn't mind stating your name and address for the record, and
Great.
we'll hear your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail with offices at 607 North Avenue in Wakefield. Here on behalf of the applicant, XSS LLC, DBA We Asian Cuisine, a proposed restaurant in Wakefield. We're here tonight on the following matters. First of all, we're here to request to allow the transfer of an all-alcohol license from BEM 123 Inc., DBA Bamboo House, to WXSS LLC, DBA We Asian Cuisine, relating to property at 21 Broadway Street in Wakefield. It's an existing restaurant, and there's a sale that's transpiring. Will result in the current all-alcohol license being transferred to WXSS LLC. The second request is to allow alteration to the premises for a new seating arrangement, which I'll provide some detail on throughout my presentation. And then finally, for a common victual license, along with an entertainment license, we're requesting a jukebox and a television for the location. With me tonight is Wei Zhao, and Wei is the manager and sole member of WXSS LLC. He's also the proposed manager of the all-alcohol license at the premises. The application has been filed and published in the Wakefield Daily Item, the notice, public notice. Required notices to abutters have been given. I've worked that all through with Sherry Dalton, your board secretary. I want to thank her because I wouldn't be sitting here without her. She's a great resource on this process, and I appreciate her help and efforts in this regard. As far as some detail on the property, it's located, as I mentioned, at 21 Broadway Street. It's in the plaza, which is numbered 21 to 29 Broadway Street. I think you're probably familiar with it. It's where currently Caporale Liquors is, and also Morena's Restaurant. And the Bamboo House has been there for some time, right next to Morena's. In addition to the application, we provided your counsel with the asset purchase agreement between the entities. We provided personal information regarding Mr. Zhao as required, corporate votes and other documentation that's required by your counsel and also by the Massachusetts Alcohol Beverage Control Commission. We've also provided a revised floor seating plan as part of our application. The total number of seats at the restaurant is not changing. It's 62. For full disclosure, however, what Mr. Zhao is proposing is that out of the 62, currently there are 54 table seats and 8 bar seats. And he desires to have 48 table seats and 14 bar seats. He wants to increase the bar seats by 6. And we do want to disclose that to you because I think if we didn't, it might get lost in the shuffle as part of our floor plan. WXSS's business plan is a Chinese themed restaurant with some Szechuan, including top quality seafood, which is a specialty that they look forward to serving. We, as I'll refer him to, as everybody does, is making a significant investment in this property, approximately $50,000 of renovations into the business. That includes cosmetic, new seating, painting, infrastructure, utility infrastructure within the restaurant, lighting, and kitchen improvements, including equipment and upgrades. So he's not just coming in and operating as it is. He plans to do, in essence, a complete renovation of the facility. He comes with a resume filled with experience in the restaurant industry. He's been in the industry for approximately 20 years. He currently is the bar manager at Green Tea Restaurant. He has served in that position since 2002, and he wears many hats at Green Tea, functioning in various management positions at the restaurant, which, as I mentioned, is in Lynn, Mass. We is tip certified, and all servers that will handle alcohol at the restaurant will be tip certified. The hours of operation, currently, the existing license, I was able to look that up through Sherry. The hours are Sundays noon to midnight, Monday through Thursday 11 to 10, and Friday and Saturday 11 to 11. So it's kind of a mishmash. And the only alteration that he would like is if the council would consider Friday and Saturday to be 11 to midnight, just like Sunday is. It's just kind of awkward that Sunday is later than Friday and Saturday would be. So, but he doesn't see a need to go any later than that at this location. We has decided to venture out on his own and start his business after a long career in the industry. He's excited about investing in Wakefield. He's making a significant investment, and he looks forward to bring his extensive resume and provide a great dining experience for the residents of Wakefield. So with that said, we're happy to answer any questions that the council might have, and we're requesting 4 things. The common victual license, the entertainment license for the jukebox and television, and then the transfer of alcohol with the alteration of the premises.
Thank you, Mr. McGrail. Any questions or comments from the council? Councilor Danahy.
I have a question. It says that approved hours of operation requesting Sunday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 1 a.m., 7 days a week.
Yeah, I think the town administrator might be able to shed some light on it. I think that's like the standard now in
Okay.
Wakefield, that the police want it to be the same.
Mm.
We're happy to go with later hours. I don't think he would ever use them.
Okay.
As I said, I think he only needs till midnight. Does that sound right, Yeah. But
Okay.
but I think there's, and again, the town
But that's the
administrator might shed some light on it. I
approved
think there's
hours
more,
for
the police department wants more of a consistency so they know what the rules are, but, you know.
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So if you want us to comply with that, that will be fine. Up to the council on that.
Great, thank you. It looks like we have a question online. Councilor Butt or Councilor Vincent?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Chines. Brian, I noticed that the start date on the lease was December 1st, 2023, so would that be the effective date when the liquor license would get transferred?
Yeah, it will be coordinated. It's always awkward with transfers, because it has to go before ABCC after this. They take some time. So, you know, usually, in a circumstance like this, until we provide evidence that we have control of the property, and also there has to be a insurance policy put in place. Until that's all done, it's been the practice of the town administrator's office not to release that license.
Well, thank you very much. That's all I have.
Great, thank you, Councilor. Other question, Councilor Dabrowski?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for this, Mr. McGrail, and Mr. Zhao. Welcome to town. It's great to have you here, and I'm excited about the life that it sounds like you're looking to infuse into this location. I was especially intrigued by what Mr. McGrail was talking about related to the investment you're making to the property and renovations, interior-wise. I think one of the big concerns for me is just exterior. And currently that location has a box sign that I think at one time was backlit. I'm not even sure if it's currently backlit, but if it is, that was grandfathered in. And under our sign bylaws, any new signage cannot be like that. And I think from an aesthetic perspective, it's really important that you be very thoughtful and deliberate in terms of what the signage looks like. Okay. There are some examples on Main Street, for instance, where there is, you know, almost like wood carved signs that have gooseneck lighting and things of that nature. You know, I can think of places like Public Kitchen as one example, but just as a case in point. So I would ask that you be quite deliberate, obviously working with our inspector to make sure that you're in compliance, but not just you're thinking you can swap out what is there with some other sign that just fills that box, because it's not the look or the aesthetic we're hoping for in the town. And especially since that area is going to be developed in the years to come, I think you're going to see that while right now it might not be the prettiest part of our town, I think over time with the development that's happening across the street from where you'll be and some other improvements with the railroad tracks, that it's going to be an area that will up the aesthetic game considerably, and I hope you'd be a part of that, rather than just, you know, kind of throwing in some sort of a sign that you can't otherwise light up into the existing structure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the council? No? Seeing none, any comments or questions from the public related to the license requests? No? And Sherry, do we have anyone online?
We do not.
All right. Hearing on,
I just want to make one point.
Yeah, please.
The location is near a school, so
Yeah.
you did notify the school department.
Yeah, we did, we sent certified mail to the school department, and there's a statute on point, it's chapter 138-16C for licenses for premises located near schools or churches. And in part, it reads, premises except for those of an inn holder and except such parts of building as are located 10 or more floors above street level, located within a radius of 500 feet of a school or church, shall not be licensed for the sale of alcohol beverages unless the local licensing authority determines in writing and after a hearing that the premises are not detrimental to the educational and spiritual activities of said school or church. So I prepared a form that I'll provide to town council. If the council is inclined to vote in favor of this, I would request respectfully that you make that finding and sign this for the record. Tom, if I could-
I have it for
Oh, you do?
Mr. Chairman, I've reviewed it. I have no problem with the form. I'd like to pass it up to you if council wants to make that determination.
so Mr. Mullen, for this, do we need, can we do this as one motion? Do we need 4 separate motions for each license
I would-
modification or granting?
Well, I would recommend that for the determination, you make a specific vote.
Okay.
Making that determination, and then you all sign it. With respect to the various licenses, I'm okay with one.
Fine.
A single vote is fine for me.
Okay. So we'll entertain a motion to approve the common victualler license, the entertainment license, and the transfer of and alteration of the all alcohol license.
So moved.
Second?
Is there any discussion?
Just a point of order on that, Mr.
Please.
Chair, if I may, just the hours of operation. I don't know if that was going to be a discussion for the council to increase it to midnight for those 2 days on Friday and Saturday, or to go with the town requirements. But I would assume that would be part of your vote.
Yeah.
So the application does have the town hours, which Mr. Mayor, remind me again, is
You can't my glasses to even
Oh,
read
it's,
here.
Counselor Danahy.
It was, no, in front of me. It was 11 to 1 a.m. 7 days a week.
Yeah.
11 a.m. to 1
1
a.m.
a.m.
7 days a week.
Sunday through Saturday, 11 to 1.
Yeah.
Is that acceptable to the council, or do we want to specify a different set of hours in the motion?
I think to, I think Mr. Mayo's point or Mr. McGrail's point, the police chief specifically would like to have those parameters set.
Right, that was
across
something
the
that
board.
Chief Smith brought before
We
the
dealt with
board
that a
years
while,
ago.
years ago, we dealt with
Yeah.
that in order to try to have some uniformity,
Right.
right? So I think it's
Exactly.
actually preferred
Yes.
that we keep it as, even if you don't, it affords you the opportunity to be open those hours, you're not required to.
Okay. So Vice Chair McLean, are you comfortable with your motion specifying the 11 a.m. to 1 a.m. hours?
I am.
All right. Further discussion? All right. Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Counselor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Vincent?
Yes.
Counselor Danahy?
Yes.
Counselor McLean?
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski?
Aye.
And myself, yes. So that's 6-0. And we'll entertain a second motion related to the findings with regard to the distance to churches and schools under state law.
Move to accept the, can I see the form?
I didn't have the form, so I was hoping you.
My memory isn't what it used to be.
I think that's not detrimental to the school or the
Move to accept the
finding.
the finding that the licensing of alcohol relating to the premises at 21 Broadway Street, Wakefield, Mass. is not detrimental to the education and spiritual activities of any school or church.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none. Oh, sorry.
I would just add that I think the most detrimental thing to that location is to not have good signage. So I implore you to please, do all that you can to spruce that up. Thank you.
Okay. Not conditional to our finding related to state statute.
Strongly encouraged.
That's your obligation.
All right, we'll take a roll call vote. Counselor Vincent?
Yes.
Counselor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Danahy?
Yes.
Counselor McLean?
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski?
Aye.
And myself, yes. Congratulations and best of luck, Mr. Zhao. We look forward to seeing the restaurant and wishing you all the success that you can see in Wakefield.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. McGraw.
Thank you.
With that, I will accept a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, take a roll call vote. Counselor Vincent,
Yes.
Counselor Butt,
Yes.
Counselor Danahy,
Yes.
Counselor McLean,
Yes.
Counselor Dabrowski,
Aye.
and myself, yes, so that's 6-0. Moving on to item 6B, to schedule a public hearing for October 16th, 2023 at 7:03 p.m. for a transfer of stock for KVP Incorporated's liquor license located at 354 Main Street.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Counselor
You
Vincent.
don't need to. Not to
don't-
set the public hearing, you're okay.
Do I need to take a roll call vote because some of us are remote?
Oh, because they're remote, yes. Sorry about that.
All right. Counselor
Trying to
Vincent.
speed it up.
Yes.
Counselor Butt.
Yes.
Counselor Danahy.
Yes.
Counselor McLean.
Yes.
Counselor Dabrowski.
Aye.
And myself, yes. Motion passes 6-0. Next, I'll be entertaining a motion to schedule a hearing for October 16th, 2023 at 7:15 p.m. for a transfer of stock for D&M Liquor Corporation, DBA, S&M Liquors, liquor license located at 258 Water Street.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll proceed to a roll call vote. Counselor Vincent,
Yes.
Counselor Butt,
Yes.
Counselor Danahy,
Yes.
Counselor McLean,
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski,
Aye.
and myself, yes. So that's 6-0, Sherry. Great. Moving on, item number 7. We have a couple of Eagle Scouts joining us today to talk about some of their projects. So if I could ask David Nerden to come up and speak, please have a seat.
I have stuff to hand out.
Why don't you hand that out and then take a seat and we'll let you get started. And thank you for joining us and thank you for your patience.
This is a copy of the slideshow that's being projected. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. I believe we have these in our packet as well. So our counselors who are remote should see at least some of this.
Oh, yes, you would.
Great. Well, thank you. Please go ahead. Look forward to hearing your presentation, David.
All right. Good evening, all of you. Thank you for taking your time to listen to me. I am hoping to acquire the approval of the town council to go ahead with my project in the coming weeks. My project would be at the JJ Round Forest Park that's off of Main Street. My project goals are to construct and install 2 signs to mark the trailheads on Rossmore Road and Holland Road. Trail improvements, which include garbage removal, tree and foliage clearing, and the creation of a GPS map for easier navigation of the park.
David, you should have a remote there if you want. Oh, it looks like they advanced the slides for you, but I think you can do it yourself as well if you want to. Oh, you got it?
Wait, okay.
Never mind. I should never interfere with WCAT. Please continue.
Okay. Next slide. The signs, which is the second sheet of paper that I gave you, It is based off of a design that is already present at JJ Round on the Main Street side. There's a picture of what the sign looks like and what I drew. The sign would be about 6 feet tall, and the posts of the sign would sit about 2 feet into the ground to allow for greater stability, whether inclement weather or someone decides that they want to shake it. The construction will take place at my house, and the installation will then take place on a separate day at the two trailheads. And wood scraps from the signs will be used to create a private property sign, because some of the trails lead onto private property. Trail improvements. Volunteers will go through the trails and identify trail blockages, which could be down trees or large rocks. It depends on what we find. Volunteers will then use hand tools and power tools to clear the trail. Debris will be dealt with accordingly. Natural waste will be pushed aside the trails to line them so they're easier to follow. And artificial waste will be collected in trash bags and taken to a dumpster or trash bin. The DPW will be called to arrange for them to take the waste, but I need approval to get a date and then call them. And then trailblazers will be installed onto the trees so people can follow the trails more easily. Volunteers would be working in small groups with designated leaders, and communication will be with cell phones, so someone doesn't have to run back and forth between groups. This is the map. The kind of lighter shade of blue for the trail, those are trails that are already mapped in JJ Round. And then in the middle of the map, there is a little trail that looks like a heart with a red zone next to it. The red zone is private property, but the trail that is outside of the red zone that goes off to Rossmore Road isn't on a map at all. And the yellow markers on the map are where the Rossmore and Holland trailheads are, and I included some pictures of the locations. It's a little hard to tell that there's a trail at some of these spots, especially if you're coming up or down the road. You wouldn't know that there was something there. And they're rather overgrown, so even if you do see something there, you would probably second guess yourself because it's not clear. Tools and supplies, basic hand tools like shovels, saws, hatchets, axes, pickaxes will be used for trail clearing and cutting the wood for the signs. And power tools such as drills, table saws, and hedge clippers will be used as well to clear the trails. Some supplies that will be needed is food and drinks, garbage bags, work gloves, a first aid kit, screws, paper towels and napkins, eye protection, and the trailblazers. There's a picture included of what the trailblazers might look like. On the other section of my project, I will be printing and laminating information sheets that I will be putting onto the signs. These information sheets will include the map and information about local species like white-tailed deer and black-capped chickadees. The Conservation Commission specifically asked for me to include information about wildlife so people could treat it as an educational experience as well. The costs of the project, for materials, it is $156.77. The supplies will be $409.95. Tools, I expect to not cost anything because I will be using tools that I have at my house and asking volunteers to bring tools as well. The other section will be about $50 because printing and laminating. And the total cost comes to about $616.72. And for fundraising, the Conservation Commission has offered to pay for this project in its entirety. And for the logistics, I plan on using my dad's truck and my mom's SUV to ferry people between locations and bring supplies. I will also ask other adults that are present at the project to make supply runs for me if needed. And volunteers that are 14 years of age or older will be leading the trail groups when we are going through and clearing the trails. This slide is all about the safety. It's a bunch of BSA stuff that is required to show that I have an idea of what needs to go on. Thank you. This project will benefit the community because it will give people the ability to experience nature close to home. It will give a safe walk to the center of town as the neighborhoods that are on Holland Road and Rossmore Road can use JJ Round to walk to Main Street. And Main Street can walk to these neighborhoods. It will also provide exercise for those communities, and it will give people a chance to learn about local wildlife. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for the presentation and for your work to bring this forward. I have to say, I remember a couple of years ago when one of your Eagle Scout candidate predecessors, Jimmy Krupp, came to talk about some of the other work within that area, and so to see the idea of sort of expanding the trail network and cleaning up some of those other trails, adding markings, is really exciting to me. So appreciate you taking the initiative to bring this forward. Any questions or comments from any others on the council? Councilor McLean.
David, one comment. I've seen, not picking on anybody in particular, but I've seen inferior PowerPoints from paid professionals. This is very good work. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Is there, I assume you're using pressure treated on the
Yes, we'll be using
signs?
pressure treated wood.
Yeah, and what do we adhere to the what adheres the blazes to the trees?
It would either be a screw or a nail.
That's all I have. I think this is a great project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Danahy?
I don't have any specific questions, but I just have to say I'm really excited about this because it's going to do something to improve the quality of life for our residents, and it's going to maximize our open space, which I'm always a fan of increasing open space so we haven't taking advantage of it. And it is so well thought out. I feel like you've thought of everything. And the safe walk to the center of town kind of aligns with our goals in terms of making our town more walkable. So thank you very much.
It
This
will
is
allow
great.
it would allow people in these communities to, instead of having to walk down the busier sides of Main
Yes.
Street, they can come out right at the JJ Round Park where the baseball field is.
Yeah.
And they're basically in downtown at that point.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. It's going to make a big difference. So thank you for doing this and for bringing it forward. I know it's a lot of work. Thank you so much.
Councilor Butt or Councilor Vincent? I think one of you had a question. I can't see either of you, so.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's you're trying to, Councilor Vincent.
Thank you.
I don't know if Michael's in the room too, but I just had a little bit of show and tell. I'm sorry I'm not there tonight, but I'm ill. So David and Michael, my dad is 85 years old, and this is his Eagle Scout badge from October of 1952. He built a bridge to haul fire equipment, firefighting equipment at Breakheart Reservation. And the reason I mention this to both of you is because this medal's on display in his home office, and that signifies what this achievement means to him. And I would hope that 70 years from now, when you get your Eagle Scout, you'll have the same feelings about that achievement that he does. And he wanted me to convey to you that he welcomes you into the Eagle Scout family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Dabrowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, David, for this. You have clearly put a ton of thought into this. You have presented something that's going to be a really valuable addition to our community. And you're also joining a very distinguished group as an Eagle Scout, so congratulations on all that you've done to get here. Couple quick questions. The Trailblazers, I know you said they're going to be fixed to the trees, the screws or nails. I'm assuming that there's some sort of weather-resistant material.
Yes, they're like sheet metal that has like paint on them.
Perfect.
So even if the paint fades, you would still be able to see that there is something physical there.
that's I know, like, a lot of times when I'm hiking, if a tree is just painted, oftentimes the paint comes off, and then you can't, then you're trying to
That's
figure out
what the
exactly
original blazes were, and they
Yeah.
faded after about 3 months.
Right, exactly. Yeah, especially in New England winters. And then I think it's great that you're having the educational component to, talking about wildlife and the like. Had you considered, perhaps creating a QR code?
The Conservation Commission said that they would be doing that, and then when they have it and the website built for it, they would give it to me and I could put it on the signs.
Awesome, because I think that'll be huge for people. I mean, like, to be able to just kind of click and then learn a lot more about, the environment as they're enjoying the space, certainly. And then finally, the timeline for this, do you have a sense?
So I age out in December, and I'm trying to get this done in October when the ground is still not frozen and it's pretty easy to dig up. I am shooting for not this upcoming weekend, but the next weekend where I actually start installing the signs.
Great. Well, again, congratulations to you. I can tell from all the patches you have that you've done a lot and worked very hard, and we're incredibly indebted as a community for the work that you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, do we need to take an official vote?
I
to
think it
forward?
would be great to have a vote because they are doing work on town land. So-
Okay, great. So we'll take a motion to approve the project to move forward, thanks to the incredible volunteer work of David and his volunteers.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Further discussion? All right. Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Counselor Vincent?
Yes.
Counselor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Danahy?
Yes.
Counselor McLean?
Yes.
Counselor Dabrowski?
I'll say yes, provided you got permission to use your dad's truck and your mom's SUV.
I did.
All right. Fair enough. Yeah, I
was going to say, we don't need to police that. I'm a yes as well. And thank you very much, and congratulations on the achievement of moving towards your Eagle Scout. I mean, that is, as a former Boy Scout who did not become an Eagle Scout, I know that is an incredible accomplishment, and thank you for the work that you're doing to help make Wakefield a better place as well.
Thank you. No problem.
And for you, David, and for Michael, if you need any help from my office or any of our divisions, let me know so we can make sure that we help you out.
Yes.
And actually, if you're looking for volunteers too, if you wouldn't mind circulating that, to Mr. Mayo, in case any of us are available, I'm sure some of us would love to help out.
or anyone watching.
Thank you.
Yeah, or anyone watching as well. Great. Well, thank you. Well, we are also excited because we have not one but two Eagle Scout projects to talk about today. So I'd like to invite Michael Baca to come up and share his project. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you guys for having me. I've been a Boy Scout for almost all my life, and I'm just hoping that this, comes to fruition and I become an Eagle, join that group of people. That'd be pretty awesome. So my Eagle Scout project, I will be building a registration gazebo at the Wakefield BMX track at Sullivan Park. It's like right near my house, perfect location. They use it all the time. It's gonna be a good project, I think. So my project description, I will be building a multi-use gazebo. My Eagle project focuses on building a multi-use gazebo the benefactors at Wakefield BMX can rely on for various activities, such as riders registration, concessions, trophy displays, and more. It will be weather resistant. My idea is to build a weather resistant structure that can support a countertop and also provide cover from the elements such as sunlight and rain. Safe structure. My goal is to create the gazebo, putting safety first by using sturdy materials and following key construction code standards for outdoor use. The benefits of my project. My Eagle Scout project will address very specific needs for the Wakefield BMX community. It will offer a permanent and durable structure that can be used during racing meets, and which makes it easier for BMX volunteers to perform clerical activities, hold trophies handed to racers during award ceremonies, and serve as a concession stand. On the picture on the right, you can see that is their current setup for their clerical activities. It's not in the greatest shape, it's just a pull-out table, and they just plop out all the papers there and sign in the riders right there. So I just want to give them a more permanent location to be able to do these kind of things. Here will be the project location. As you can see in the picture on the left, in the square on the top, that is where it will roughly be, right in between the track and the starting line. And on the picture on the right is a close-up shot of where precisely it will go. My project specifications, I will be having support posts. The support posts will be sturdy 4x4 in diameter. The tabletop will be made from 3/4 plywood and held in place using 2x4 beams. The roof will be made of durable materials such as metal roofing to be able to withstand wind and snow loads. It will also have a pitch of at least 3x12 inches to ensure proper drainage. The foundation, the gazebo will rest on top of deck pavers, which in turn will be tied to the ground using metal rebars. And some key pointers to the specifications. All wood will be pressure treated. All nails and screws will be made of steel to avoid corrosion. And there's also a materials attachment at the back of this project if you have any information or any details. My project timeline. So September, I'm gathering out all the necessary project paperwork, meeting with my benefactor, the Troop 701 committee, and you guys to review my plans. And also paying all the applicable permit fees. In October, which is this month, obtaining all the necessary permits, calling DigSafe to the site to make sure that I'm not going to puncture any lines or anything, raising funds via GoFundMe, preparing the work site, and beginning the construction. In November, I'll continue construction and installing roof and siding, and in December, completing the construction, passing the final inspection, and enjoying the new outdoor registration gazebo. And this is just the appendix back here with the safety guidelines. Like David mentioned before, these are just the standard BSA safety guidelines that they have in place to ensure the safety of all the scouts working on the project. And also here's the materials list. My total cost for everything is going to come out to $673.42. All of my tools will also be what I have and will be provided by people who can bring them and use them while I'm working on my project. And all of the funds will be raised by the GoFundMe page that will be blasted out through a Facebook page through the Wakefield BMX community.
Great. Thank you.
And on the last slide here, sorry.
No, please. I
Okay.
didn't mean to cut you
Okay.
off.
It's a concrete deck block. This is going to be the support for all the posts for the registration stand. And there's a hole in the middle, which I'll be putting a metal rebar into to secure it in place to make sure that it doesn't move anywhere and it stays there for a long time.
Awesome. Well, thank you. This is incredibly thought out. I have to say the design of what you've put together too really is great. I mean, you've put something together that looks good as well as being incredibly functional. So appreciate that. Can I ask, are you a BMX biker yourself?
No, but I used to go there a lot when I was a kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I remember I used to go there all the time. I loved it. I just want other kids to enjoy it too.
Oh, that's great. Well, it's wonderful that you're willing and interested in paying it forward. That's terrific. Can I ask my colleagues any questions or comments? Councilor Dennehy?
No, I was going to say it's a great job. I'm so impressed with both of you and what you've put together. Your PowerPoint was great too. And you mentioned a permanent structure, but I think it's also a professional structure. It looks great. It's a really well designed, and it's going to be great for the BMX community to have that. So thank you for all of your hard work. I know how much goes into becoming an Eagle Scout, and you've just shown us how much thought and preparation has gone into this. So good luck to you.
Thank you.
Councilor Dabrowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Michael, this is great. Clearly, you put a ton of thought into this, and it shows in the design. I think we could probably use you for a number of projects around town. With this level of thought.
Some carpentry stuff at my house I might call you about.
Exactly. The BMX park itself, I think a lot of people may not be aware of it. Can you maybe just kind of describe a little bit, like what it is, and then also like anything aside from this that you think we could do as a town to try to like improve it or enhance it to make it a more appealing place for more younger folks to go?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I've been going to the BMX track since I was like a little kid. So I used to ride there on my little bike. It wasn't actually, it's not like a BMX bike, but like it did the trick. So yeah, I mean, it's just right in Sullivan Park. It's right next to it, where like right next to the baseball field, and it's like just a bunch of dirt jumps, and they have like a starting block there. But it's really bigger than you think. They have like a lot of events. They have a lot of like racing events there, and it's also they also are sponsored by USA BMX, so they have like a lot of like worldwide, like not like worldwide events, but like USA based BMX races there. And some work that could be done. There was a bunch of ideas that I had, but I think this one was really going to benefit it the most for my project. But I feel like some other projects that could work there. The sign. There's a Wakefield BMX sign that's right next to another actual Eagle project that was put there on Wakefield BMX. It's very run down, but it's more of a maintenance issue. But I feel like it could be made into a really well shaped sign. And just some starting blocks maybe as well, like refurbishing the starting blocks. That could also help as well.
And I imagine, Mr. Mayor, we could look into our budgets to see if we have anything freed up, like rec department perhaps, or something along those lines, to see about these enhancements. Because I do think it's one of those unique parts of town, and it's really one of the gems of town for our young residents that a lot of people don't realize even exists. Thank you for that.
My grandson absolutely loves it. Absolutely loves it. So.
And I would just say, as far as that you had mentioned about the permitting fees and whatnot, so I think any motion that we have should be to, those are really intended more for professionals who are doing work in town, certainly not for this kind of a project.
Yes.
So I would also move that we would, assuming this goes forward, we would waive any permitting fees associated with this.
Any other comments from the council? Seeing none, again, just to echo, Councilor Dabrowski's comments, this really is a hidden gem in Wakefield, and I think you've put together a project that will enhance it in a very material way. So thank you for your work. Again, thank you for your really excellent work too, just in the design and the well thought out project. I'm excited to see this move forward. So I will take a motion to approve the construction of the gazebo. What are we calling this? A gazebo. A multi-use gazebo at the BMX park at Sullivan Park, with the added stipulation that any town permit fees be waived for this project.
So moved.
Second.
Great. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Councillor Vincent?
Yes.
Councillor Butt?
Yes.
Councillor Danahy?
Yes.
Councillor McLean?
Yes.
Councillor Dombrowski?
Yes.
And myself, yes. So 6-0. Congratulations. Best of luck as you get through the next. This will do a round of applause for both of our Eagles.
Thank you both.
Excellent work, and you make our community proud. And thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Michael, coordinate that with my office, with Dennis Fazio. I want to make sure that he's with you in the location, exact location, when you do the dig safe, okay?
Okay.
Perfect. Great
Thank
job.
you.
Thank you. Let's see. Moving on to item number 8, traffic advisory recommendations. I have Lieutenant Anderson on.
Excuse me.
Oh, yes.
I believe I gave you the original.
You did. You probably want that back. Thank you very
so
much.
David. Thank you. Good luck.
All right, Lieutenant Anderson, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is certainly going to be anticlimactic after. I don't think anybody cares about my stop sign at the end of Eaton Street. Those are fantastic, though. Very, very good. The Traffic Advisory Committee had a meeting, and we discussed and decided to recommend a stop sign at the end of Eaton Street at the intersection of Crescent Street. So I'm not sure if you want me to share my screen or not. I could show you the intersection there, but basically it's directly across from Brightview. There is an established crosswalk there. It's kind of a funky island setup that I know that town engineer Bill Renault is going to be taking a look at during any future repaving there. The DPW has tried to do their best with some line painting to make it a little bit more clear of an intersection there, because it is a little confusing with the island setup. It's kind of been that way for quite a while. But we did receive a request from a resident of Brightview that during the day they could see vehicles kind of just traveling from Eaton onto Crescent without even slowing down. So I think, with as many people that are following their GPS around town to find a different route, it might not be as obvious that you're coming to an intersecting street and need to yield to oncoming traffic. So for that reason, we request a stop sign be approved at the end of Eaton Street at the intersection with Crescent, as Crescent Street has the right-of-way there.
Any questions from the council? Councilor Dabrowski?
I'll just add, Lieutenant Anderson, I wholeheartedly support this. I agree. It's a very awkward space right now. I do think it gets a decent flow of traffic, but it's not the kind of change that would cause any kind of backup, in my experience at least, there at all. So I think it improves safety exponentially without any negative consequence of traffic tie-ups or anything of the sort. So I think it's perfectly situated there from a safety standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will confess, I didn't realize there wasn't a stop sign there already. So.
You don't know.
Well, I think that's why it came to our attention. For many years, everybody knows that it's an intersection there if you live in town. But if you're following your GPS and you're trying to cut out some of the downtown area to get toward the lake, you may find yourself just driving straight through there. So I think most of us stop there anyway, but it could benefit from a stop sign, no doubt.
Any other questions from the council? Hearing none, we'll take a motion to approve the recommendation for a stop sign at the intersection of Eaton at Crescent Street.
So moved.
Second.
Any further questions? Seeing none, roll call vote. Councilor Vincent?
Yes.
Councilor Butt?
Yes.
Councilor Danahy?
Yes.
Councilor McLean?
Yes.
Councilor Dabrowski?
Aye.
And myself, yes. So 6-0, Sherry. Well, thank you. That was very anticlimactic, and though no less important. But thank you for bringing that to us, Lieutenant.
And just a quick update on the Salem and Pleasant intersection there. It's been a couple months now. No accidents on record, so that's a good thing. We've had directed patrols out there to try to get the message across that there is a new four-way stop there. Our directed patrols have resulted in really not that many motor vehicle stops. I think people got the message pretty early on. I think a majority of our motor vehicle stops were within the first couple weeks of the stop sign installation there at the four-way intersection. So after that, we've seen pretty good compliance, no traffic crashes, and I drive through there regularly, pretty much every day, multiple times a day, and no real extensive queuing that I've seen so far. So it's the start of the school year. We'll keep an eye on that, but so far so good. So I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you, Lieutenant. All right, moving on, item number 9, surplus equipment. Mr. Mayo, is this?
This one's very boring. We have a number of old vehicles, from sidewalk plows to pickup trucks to old lifts, that any vehicle that we have, when we're replacing them or replacing a vehicle, we try them in trade. If we feel we get a very low for the trade, or in some cases nothing in trade, we go out to bid and get rid of them, get them off our books, and the money goes back into the general fund. So we need you to declare them as surplusable so we can get rid of them.
Any questions from the council? No? Anyone interested in old sidewalk plow that apparently will asphyxiate you if you try to use it?
It's 33 years old, so.
All right. Well,
I think it's just important to say that this is not our best saleable equipment.
No, it's not.
No.
This is the bottom of the
Right.
barrel.
Yeah, we have a 30-year-old UTV as well. That's getting pretty up there. All right, we'll take a motion to declare the 7 items in the memo from Mr. Conway as surplus equipment for auction.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, a roll call vote. Counselor Vincent?
Yes.
Counselor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Danahy?
Yes.
Counselor McLean?
Yes.
Counselor Dabrowski?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Motion carries. Item number 10, Mr. Mullen.
So, Mr. Chairman, as I think you will recall, there was a conflict issue that arose for the lawyer who was hired by the town to handle the zoning recodification. That's Mark Bobrowski, and it came to light a few weeks ago that one of Mark's partners, Paul Haverty, had been retained by Scott Green in connection with a 40B project. And this potentially might have raised a state ethics issue. I'm not entirely convinced it did. It certainly did raise a professional conduct issue, as the lawyers on the council would understand, that when one lawyer in a firm represents one party and another lawyer in the firm represents a different party, and those parties are at odds with each other, or at least not aligned, then there has to be clear disclosure by both lawyers to both clients. And in the event that everybody agrees that there is no actual conflict, then the clients can authorize their lawyers to act, provided that they do so after full disclosure and in writing. So I have spoken to Attorney Bobrowski about this. He was abashed. He felt embarrassed. He hadn't realized. I can tell you that partners often don't talk to each other. And so he didn't know what his partner was doing, and Paul Haverty didn't know what he was doing. And Mark has sent us a request for appointment as a special municipal employee, and more significantly, making the kind of written disclosure under the rules of professional conduct that I have outlined. That's before you, and I would ask that you both authorize the chair to countersign the disclosure and conflict waiver letter, and also that you vote to make the position of any lawyer who is hired by the town to recodify the zoning bylaws as a special municipal employee. Be happy to try to answer any questions.
Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved. Can we do both at once?
Mr. Mullen, we can do both at once from a motion standpoint, or do you need them separate?
No, I think we can do them both at once. That's fine.
Okay.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Yes, Councilor
I just
Dabrowski.
ask, Councilor Mullen, you're satisfied with the with what's been disclosed in the waivers by the clients, correct?
Oh, I am.
Yep.
And I've got to say, I think it's very important that we keep Attorney Bobrowski on the job. He is the guy in the Commonwealth.
Right.
I determined that. I knew it anyway. I've hired him in at least one other town for this purpose, and I went on the listserv for the Mass Municipal Law Association asking if anybody had any information about anybody who does this kind of work, and his was the only name that came up. He is also the author of the seminal work on Massachusetts land use planning.
So his expertise is of tremendous knowledge, a tremendous benefit to our town. So we're very thankful
Sounds
for
like
that.
unique as well.
Yeah, quite.
Other comments or questions? No? Well, so seeing none, we have a motion to both designate Mr. Bobrowski as a special municipal employee and also to authorize the chair to sign the disclosure of the conflict. We'll take a roll call vote. Councilor Vincent?
Yes.
Councilor Butt?
Yes.
Councilor Danahy?
Yes.
Councilor McLean?
Yes.
Councilor Dombrowski? I was
Aye.
about to say Bobrowski, but Dombrowski, yes.
No connection, no conflict of interest there.
No worries. And myself, yes, the motion carries 6-0.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, item 11A, we have an update on the Wakefield Memorial High School building project. Sherry, I'm not sure who we have for this one.
I don't see anybody on. Chair.
Okay. Okay. We will, let's hold to see if anyone comes on. We'll come back to that if they do. In the meantime, let's move on to item 11B, the affordable housing proposal for Stark Avenue. If the project team wouldn't mind coming up to the table, introducing yourselves, and we'll let you move forward with your presentation. I'm sorry? I'm assuming we have your materials on PowerPoint? Okay. Great. Hope you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves and the team, and please go ahead.
Certainly. For the record, Paul Haverty, Blattman, Bobrowski, Haverty, and Silverstein, representing the applicant. With me tonight is the applicant, Scott Green. Also with me is John Tilton and Adam Jones and Peter Sandors from Phoenix Architects. Unfortunately, our 40B consultant, Kristen Costa from LA Associates, is not able to be here with us tonight. So I will have to be covering some of her things tonight. So this project is being proposed as a development pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 40B, Sections 20 to 23, which allows a developer who commits to restricting 25% of the units in a development as affordable to request waivers of local rules and requirements so that they can construct the proposed development. The applicant meets this requirement by agreeing to restrict 3 of the proposed 12 units as affordable. The applicant has filed a request for a project eligibility letter from Mass Housing, which is a qualifying subsidizing agency, and this is the required first step in the Chapter 40B process. In order to file a request for a project eligibility determination, an applicant must be either A, a public agency, a nonprofit organization, or a limited dividend organization, or B, the project must be fundable under an eligible subsidy program, and C, the applicant must control the site. So the applicant is eligible as a limited dividend organization, which simply requires the applicant to agree to limit its return on consistent with the Chapter 40B regulations and guidelines. And this ultimately is done at the end of the process via the execution of a regulatory agreement with the subsidizing agency. The issuance of the project eligibility letter is evidence that the project is fundable. And finally, the applicant controls the site via a deed recorded at the Middlesex South Registry of Deeds dated July 7th, 2022, in book 80398 at page 443. So once Mass Housing issues the project eligibility letter, the applicant is then eligible to file a comprehensive permit application with the Zoning Board of Appeals. Once that application is filed, the Zoning Board of Appeals has 30 days to open the public hearing. And once the public hearing has been opened, the board has 180 days to go through its hearing process, take in information and evidence, and then close the public hearing. Once the public hearing has been closed, the board has 40 days to render its decision and file it with the town clerk. Once the decision has been filed with the town clerk, there's a 20-day appeal period. If the developer determines that they are required to take an appeal, that appeal goes to the Housing Appeals Committee. If an abutter wants to take an appeal, that goes to either the Land Court or the Superior Court. Again, so when the board finishes its hearing process, it has 3 options for its decision. It can either approve it as submitted
and I've been doing this for more than 20 years. I've never, ever seen that happen. It can approve with conditions, or it can deny the project. And again, any appeals of that would go to the Housing Appeals Committee. So if the board either denies the project or issues an approval with conditions that the developer determines renders the project uneconomic, they would file an appeal with the Housing Appeals Committee. So that's really a basic overview of how Chapter 40B works. So next I would like to introduce John Tilton from Sparagus and Williams to discuss the project-specific details.
It's actually me filling in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. John couldn't make it tonight. I'm Peter Blaisdell. I'm filling in for him. Is everybody familiar where the project is, roughly located? Okay. So as you know, there's 4 parcels at the end of Stark Avenue, which ends at its paving ends, and then you heard from Mr. Kelly earlier, essentially right in front of his house, and then his driveway continues a little bit. The parcel has wetlands on one side and has a intermittent stream with a drainage channel that goes underneath the roadway on one side. All 4 parcels combined is approximately 1.7 acres. The elevations range from about 106 down at the wetlands to about 140 at the upper end, so about 34 feet of grade from one end of the site to the other. As Mr. Haverty mentioned, we're proposing 12 townhouse units, 3 units per block. The plan is to continue the Stark Avenue about 320 feet or so down the layout. We'll then have a U-shaped driveway, which will then be able to access all the front of the units. Each one will have 1 car garage space available and 1 space out in front, so each one will have two parking spaces per unit. Drainage would be handled on site in stormwater management areas, one right in front of the units and then another one on the other side of the roadway down in the upland area. Beyond that, as you know, this is really just a conceptual design, so you know, we have done soil testing in the area previously. We have met with conservation previously, and you'd probably understand that we did have a filing before both the planning board and the conservation at one time, which withdrew. So yeah, that's really the only engineering I have to share with it at this point. If there's any other questions about it, I can certainly answer them.
Sure. I would ask if there are other components of the presentation, if we can do those and then kind of come back to questions at the end.
Hello, board members. My name's Andrew Jones. I'm representing Phoenix Architects and our client, Scott Green. So as you can see from the first slide here, this is basically a graphic front of what one of the 4 buildings would look like. They are all very similar, but there is some grading changes between each building, so that's kind of where you'll see the adjustments per building. But there's 3 units in each building. They're 3-bedroom, roughly 2,000 square feet and 2.5 bath. If you don't mind going to the next slide. So as you can see here, this is building A. A lot of the interior layouts are basically identical. The biggest change between the buildings, so we don't have to go through each of them, is that the grading in the back is significantly different between. So some of them on the back end, past where the garage is could be walkout. In other areas, it's fully underground. But as you can see, there's 1 car garage. There's a little porch for each unit with stairs going up to what's going to be the open living space above, and a small utility room in the back. Once you go upstairs, it's a nice open concept, dining, living, kitchen, half bath, some closet space. And then as you work your way up to the upper floor, there's 2 bedrooms that have a shared bathroom, and then what we're calling the primary suite in the front. So it has its own walk-in closet and its own bathroom. You can kind of keep going through if you want. If you go to the next page, you can start to see elevations, and you can start to see what I'm talking about with the grade change. So building A steps, each of them are about a foot different from where the plate heights are. And then, as you can see from the rear elevation, the grading significantly drops. You can go ahead. Building B, very similar as far as floor plan layout goes. You can kind of move ahead if you don't mind. This one becomes more flat, so all the floor heights at the same level. So as you can see, it doesn't step this one. We did a little bit of changes to the roof lines and stuff like that just to make them not all feel exactly the same. There's slight adjustments, as you can see. Building C, very similar to Building B, just actually mirrored, and slight grade change in the back. You can keep going. And then this is Building D, which begins to step. If you go to the next slide, you can see it again as it's stepping down the other way with roughly a foot difference. And then this is like a materials list. So we're proposing, you know, really good materials. It's not just a vinyl box. LP siding, it's like a composite siding. Matthew Brothers windows, which it comes from Maine, actually. Architectural style shingles. We're adding details like the prefab cupola on top and pipe-on brackets, and the standing seam metal roofs over the garage overhangs and the entry. So we're really trying to make these condos feel, you know, appropriate and visually appealing.
That's just an existing conditions plan of the topography there on site. You can see the end of Stark Ave on the left, which I think you had the gentleman on earlier that has the last house on the right, and then you heard Mr. Kelly, he's got the last house down on the left, so just to give you an idea where that sits. As I mentioned, there's a intermittent stream and a culvert that goes underneath that layout of Stark Ave, which then discharges the runoff. It collects to the wetland system on the other side, and then from there, it gets a little convoluted. It does ultimately make its way down to, I believe it makes its way down to the river via backyards and channels and swales and that type of thing. So if you want to go, this is the by right plan, just showing that based on the zoning, that's what you could essentially get for just 12,000 square foot lots. That's just a layout of what Andrew was just talking about, the buildings A, B, C, and D, all around a circular driveway with an area to make sure that the Wakefield ladder truck can safely turn in and turn out. I think there's a colored rendering. There you go. Just give you a little idea. So that central area that's kind of lightly colored, that would be a larger stormwater management area that would feed a lot of the runoff that's coming from the upper driveway and from the roofs. And then anything else from the roadway would be then fed down to the stormwater management area on the other side of the road. So the idea is to capture all our own stormwater runoff and treat it before it either infiltrates in the ground or then is released to the downgrading areas.
Thank you. Any other comments from the team?
So, and again, the way the process works is we're at the project eligibility stage right now, which is not really sort of a site planning process. It's really a fundability question. Once Mass Housing issues its project eligibility letter, we then file our comprehensive permit application with the Board of Appeals. That's when they do the site planning. They will retain peer review consultants to review issues and concerns. I know that there's been a number of concerns brought up with regards to the access road, Stark Avenue and its width. That'll be something we will retain a traffic engineer, we'll provide a traffic study. The board will then have the ability to have that traffic study peer reviewed, and that will be played out throughout that hearing process.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Haverty. Mr. Mayo, I know we had a site visit 2 weeks ago or so. Any feedback from town staff that we want to share?
We did have a site visit on September 8th, and thank you for moving us out of the sun. I don't know who it was. It got very hot there.
I think that was
halfway
Chris.
through. But yeah, we did have in attendance. We had a police chief, fire chief, town engineer, conservation agent, as well as myself, Councilor McLean. Trying to think whether any other town people. That was probably it, but that was the main one. So the fire chief is very, very concerned. We heard some of the personnel in the area, some of the citizens talk about flooding, and I think passed around some pictures there. Also, he's very worried about, this proposed project being at the end of the longest dead-end street in Wakefield. Very concerned about access. The street is very narrow, as a lot of the neighbors talked about. Even parking on one side of that street is going to be a little bit tight from being there, as one of the people mentioned. Water supply to the site is via an old water main that we'd have to look at. Fire chief would want these units to be sprinkled because he is concerned about, the fire, and he did point out the heavy rains. I will tell you, the town engineer is concerned with the stormwater runoff. That was an issue even in his mind for a 3-lot subdivision. I did have a threshold question, I think, when you did say that the stormwater was going to be collected in I'm going to say the 3 lots across the street from the subdivision.
So there'd be two detention basins. One would be an upper one would be a lower one.
But kind of across the street. Is what
Yes.
Are those lots under your control?
Yes.
Your client's control? Okay. Because the plan, I think, does name somebody else, but maybe they've been transferred since then.
I could let Mr. Green.
I own the larger lot. I have everything under purchase and sale.
So they're under purchase and sale. Okay, so they're not joint. I knew
I'm
my
sorry if
registry
I got
skills
my terms wrong.
hadn't withered that much. Yeah, so there is some concern from police and as well as fire going down that long street. Extending the road another 320 feet would be somewhat problematic. Well, on our end from water and sewer.
Thank you. Comments from the council. I'm going to start online if Councillor Vincent or Councillor Butt have any comments or questions. Councillor Butt?
So just, Steve, as much as our town administrator, Mayo, as much as we can get Chief Scory and Chief Sullivan to kind of weigh in, I think that's really important. I think the public safety kind of comes to mind. It is a very narrow street, having driven down there, and I think that's a big concern as it goes through the process, just having, I've been at meetings with them before where they weigh in, so just as much as we can get it documented of what they saw, and we can share that with the appropriate people, it would be appreciated.
Great. Thank you. And Councillor Vincent, I think I saw you shake your head that you didn't have comments, but maybe I...
Actually,
no, please, go ahead.
Yeah, I did shake my head no, but I actually have a comment, Chair Chines. Steve, what's the due date for us filing our letter to Mass Housing?
October 15th. October 15th.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll come back to the table. Councillor Dombrowski?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for this presentation. And I'll say that, I'll preface my remarks by saying that when Phoenix has come before us in the past, I know you often present very nice plans, and I understand you have a client that you're representing, and it's a lovely building that you're proposing. The problem is that it doesn't fit at all in this neighborhood, and we as a body of 7 need to represent the voices of the people that are on, not just Stark, but the vicinity as a whole. And I'll say, this is not the first time that I've seen the owner of these properties be met with considerable pushback from residents. I feel like Nahant Street is being overrun right now by development. And I recall when this same owner was at another location close on Nahant Street with a site visit, there were literally people holding signs, and people were honking their horns, and it was a big issue. So we're talking about a mature street that is I think exclusively, or at least primarily, single-family homes, as Mr. Mayo pointed out, the longest dead end in all of Wakefield. And then you get to the very end of this very narrow street, and then you, in essence, create a new neighborhood at the end of the street that has raised significant concerns for our public safety vehicles, that has raised significant concerns that have been documented by real life experience of the kind of extreme flooding that happens. And it really presents as not listening or not respecting the neighbors in any way. I mean, this is now the second time that we've had, a room full of people here who have been, quite concerned, and candidly, rightfully so, quite concerned about how the character of the place that they thought was their neighborhood is being proposed to change. And this is not the first time that this owner in particular has proposed a really grossly missized development for the parcel that we're talking about here. I think that alone, just the three houses as a matter of right, the three single families that would be allowed there, in and of themselves could create some issues, perhaps with the flooding and whatnot. But at least that would be something manageable for this neighborhood. I mean, these folks are under no illusions here that this is going to be without impact. You're talking about a driveway and a garage. Anyone that has ever had a guest over knows that you're not just in a position to have your car in the garage and a guest in your driveway and that's it. So we're talking about on-street parking, and we're talking about it on the regular. Let's be candid about that. That in and of itself creates significant safety issues, regardless of how you may have drawn this U-shaped drive-in, and even with a backing area for the safety apparatus. And this is on top of the fact that we have a narrow street to begin with that people would be traveling down. So and the fact that we have a police chief who is so concerned about the fire aspect that he would want the properties to be sprinklered, I think is quite telling. And that doesn't take into account the other issue, which is the emergency response for people with health issues. When and so what do we have? We have a fire truck that arrives first, right? How is that all going to be happening? So I think there's very little thought given to that. This presents as something more along the lines of trying to maximize profit at the compromise of quality of life for the residents who have lived there for a long while. And I think that's really inappropriate. And it's not the first time that we've seen this right within about a mile stretch of Nahant Street. And I think it has to stop. People deserve to have a neighborhood and character of their neighborhood that's consistent with what they bought into, and not to have someone come in and then try to completely, eviscerate any sense of community that has been established by the character of this neighborhood by trying to maximize profits, by cramming in as many units as you can at the end of a very, very long dead-end street. It's not appropriate, and I would really encourage the owner to rethink and to start to listen to the residents. I don't live on Nahant Street or even off Nahant Street, but I understand what those residents are talking about. I travel that corridor often. I see the traffic. I see, the people that are walking, along that street. You can do better, owner of this property, and I encourage you to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Dabrowski. Other questions or comments from the councilor? Councilor Danahy?
Well, I want to echo what Councilor Dombrowski said. I think he's absolutely on point on everything that he made. Is that I'm really getting sickened by the Nahant Street project that came before us and this project, because this really is such a slap in the face to the people who live in those communities, in those neighborhoods. And it really is about maximizing profits, and the only one who's benefiting is the developer. Is that I don't know how anybody can think that this is an appropriate place to, other than the land was available, so we're going to build on it, that it's appropriate. When we hear from fire, police, we hear from the residents, we saw the pictures of the flooding. This is a street that has had ongoing challenges, and now it's already had challenges, and now we're going to be adding to those challenges. And I think it's really unconscionable that, because there's open land available, we're going to build on it, and we can use 40B to go in there and to maximize our profits. The only good thing you have going is that I do agree that the property looks beautiful. I think that the building is great, but it is not only does it not fit that neighborhood, but it is dangerous to put those 12 units there. And it really is not being kind or respectful to people who have lived on that street. And so I would encourage people who live on Stark Avenue I would encourage them to go to Mass Housing as well and get in touch with Mass Housing and put pressure on Mass Housing This is not a good plan. And the parking issue, you know that if there's a garage and there's a parking space behind it, that second car is going to probably be parking on the street. And that's going to cause further issues. You're adding 24 cars into that street. I just think it's unconscionable.
Thank you, Councilor Dennehy. Vice Chair McLean?
Yeah, I was on the site visit, and fortunately, I don't drive a fancy car because just going down that street and trying to figure out where I was going to be able to spike it without getting hit by somebody was kind of a challenge. Of course, I agree with my fellow councilors. I'm not going to pile on here. I'm simply going to say that it would be nice if you could move this over to 32 Nahant, and then you might have a little bit of a better reception, at least in the town.
Yep.
The traffic study, I don't know. I don't do traffic studies. It would be interesting to see. You could give that person my phone, because I've already got people sending me the morning traffic from Nahant Street, which is already a bloody mess. Absolute mess. With more to come. High school's being constructed, and the things that we all know are going on that are going to make it more challenging before you develop and have to do the work you have to do to develop. It's a long, narrow street. I haven't heard the fire chief ever say, this is the absolutely worst possible location for a development. I don't know whether that'll carry weight. I understand how 40B works, but to the extent that you can try to be good neighbors to the town and not be fighting us, if that's indeed what we wind up doing here, it would be good for you to consider your options on perhaps, downsizing some of these projects. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you, Councilor. Just to add a couple of comments from myself, I do want to start with a couple of positive things, and I want to echo, I think, the sense that you've heard from Councilor Dabrowski and others. The design here is very thoughtful. It's very nice, and I think I know some of my fellow councilors are have expressed a lot of concern about aesthetics in different projects, and so I do appreciate that. I also do want to highlight, we've talked a lot over the last couple of years. We've gone through different planning efforts about trying to address sort of the missing middle in housing, right? We have very, very large houses that are being built in single-family lots. We have very, very small, rental units or condos that are being built in places. And it seems like you've kind of picked a design that sort of highlights that middle ground, that sort of, kind of growing family type market. And I do think that's a positive here. And so to that end, as Vice Chair McLean mentioned, what you've laid out here, in my opinion, would be wonderful, Mr. Green, for the parcel that you own on Nahant Street. I actually think that would be a real value add to the neighborhood as you think about your other 40B project. But I think you've heard from the council and from the neighbors and from our staff some concerns here about the suitability of the site for a development. The utility access and the traffic burden on what is a very narrow street, a street that is served by some pretty old utilities, is a concern. And if mass housing does allow this to move forward into the eligibility phase, I would imagine that the Zoning Board of Appeals will probably be asking for some remediation there. I would imagine we'd probably have to look at redoing water and sewer service on that street and then redoing the road as a result of that. The traffic burden, this probably adds, as I drive down the street, I would guess about 50% of the number of units to the street, which is impactful for a dead-end street. And then finally, some of the access concerns as well would be some areas that I think, we've highlighted, and I think we've heard residents highlight as well. This also doesn't get into some of the conservation issues, the drainage and wetlands issues, which I know will be a pretty involved part of this project. So, Mr. Mayo, I would ask, as we put together our comment letter, if we can incorporate all of that feedback into the letter, and would certainly invite the project team to add any final comments or answer any questions that were raised by the council.
I appreciate the feedback from the council, and I do want to assure you we are listening to it. it's not at all unusual as you go through the process with the Zoning Board of Appeals to see sometimes significant changes made in design. And as I had noted previously, that's when the site development, site planning review occurs, and that's when the appropriate time is to actually discuss those types of changes. But we will be open to any types of changes to this and the Nahant Street project, that will help alleviate concerns while still allowing my client to have a profitable development. Because if it's not profitable, then obviously you can't go forward with the development. So, it's Chapter 40B is a balancing of interests. It's a balancing of issues of local concern against the regional need for affordable housing. That's always what it comes down to, and that's what it will come down to here as well.
Thank you. One final question, if I may. So there was a previous proposal for, was it a four-house subdivision? Three-home subdivision. That my understanding is that proposal was withdrawn. Can you share the reasons for why that was taken off the table?
We weren't getting anywhere. After almost 9 months, it was just falling flat. We weren't really able to get any common ground with the town engineer or the board or the abutters. So we just decided to withdraw it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayo, any final comments or questions?
No, I'm pretty good. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. We appreciate you coming in tonight. Appreciate you hearing the feedback, and we will, I'm sure, be in touch after our comment letters submitted.
Very good. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you. Good night. Next up, we have items, what number are we on? 11C and D. Mr. Mayo, I think we're taking these two together.
We're going to take these two together, if that's okay.
Great. And Sherry, I'm assuming we don't have anyone for the high school project on yet?
No, nobody.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
All right,
You
Mr.
ready?
Mayo,
Okay,
the floor is
thank
yours.
you. Let me, I do have a PowerPoint, if I could get the, there it is. I'll control it, it's easier. Thank you. I don't let my wife have the clicker either at the house. This is like, so anyways, I want you to keep a few concepts alive while we talk about this project of, transit advisory committee and micro-transit, which is more of a mini localized transit as opposed to macro, and looking at this whole transportation demand management as we look at new developments and what have you. So think about, for a transit advisory committee or panel, whatever you want to call it, different from a traffic advisory committee. But think about that as expanding this concept of microtransit and transport demand management to different constituencies. Think about that expanding, 4 E's we're going to talk about. Also exploring different types of modes of transportation. Embolden the requirement for extra services, my 3rd E, and 4th E to ensure compliance. So kind of keep those in the back of your mind as we kind of talk this through a little bit in this initial presentation. So what is a Community Transit Advisory Committee? It's really a committee community advocates that work collaboratively with residents, businesses, municipal and state officials to expand mobility choices and safer travel for all. Now, Stoneham has one around us, and it really is interestingly enough, it is a committee that is not appointed by the select board in Stoneham or by the town manager over there. But it really morphed out of the Stoneham Community Development Corporation. And it started out really by lobbying for increased MBTA service to Stoneham. It's really kind of how it started. So it was a grassroots community group that worked with the Chamber of Commerce. So I would think of Wakefield, a group like this that may be a group that works out of, with Safe Streets, works with the Chamber. Youth action teams, because I think the young kids have a very different view of what they envision transportation than we do. School departments, certainly. Council on Aging, they have a different view of what is needed as well. Disability Council And of course, all coming at the end maybe to the Traffic Advisory Committee, because there are some technical aspects that need to be done. So really, it's a group that's going to expand its kind of constituency, not just be not just focus on biking or walking, but kind of the whole ball of wax of how it all comes together. So kind of think about that a little bit as we go forward. What is microtransit? So microtransit is really, you go back to your college days, you had microeconomics and macroeconomics, macro being the bigger, micro being the smaller. So really, I look at it as a form of responsive transport vehicles for hire, and it may be subsidized. It may be subsidized by a office park, may be subsidized by a apartment building. It may be subsidized by the community itself. And in it, they have flexible routes, they have flexible scheduling, and they have some shared routes. And I think what you can really think about is the Council on Aging has 2 vans that they that's a part of this whole concept. They're going to appointments, they're going to shopping, they're going to wherever they're taking some of our valued seniors. So it's kind of in a very small little a microcosm of what that could be. And it is flexible routes and flexible scheduling, which is very different than you think of the MBTA. But the 137 bus has 1 route. That's it. It goes from A to B with stops along the way. This is designed to be more flexible. What is traffic demand management? So this is really exploring different types of, so let's keep exploring in mind. So it's a defined set of strategies aimed at maximizing traveler choices, commuter residential ride sharing and planning. One of its major goals is to reduce trip generation rates and parking needs, particularly single vehicle trips, single occupancy vehicle trips, and increase multimodal transportation in all plans. That's the key to this whole thing. And when we talk about redeveloping of buildings or more buildings, we're really looking at not only their parking needs, but we should be looking at other things, other ways that we can have less an effect on the roadways when these come together. Think about I talk about the end too, but think about 200 Corner Power Parkway, which I guess is all the way down to the ground now if you haven't been by. So it is happening. Part of that was a kind of shuttle service, sharing that, bringing people to the downtown, maybe to the T station, maybe elsewhere. So that's something to think about. So we're exploring those different activities. Again, our goal is to shift away from single occupancy vehicles and provide alternative modes of transportation, including public transit, semi-public, carpooling, van pooling, ride sharing, walking, and cycling. When we think about this, a big part of this is really to educate all of us about a broader sense of moving about the community or moving out of the community. And I can see this also morphing into maybe working with Reading and Stoneham. Think of those as our corridor, kind of going towards Melrose and back. Maybe Linfield Marine, I don't know. Linfield's one. Benefits of this whole total demand management or transportation management is conserving energy and reducing emissions, of course. Reducing wear and tear on roads and bridges, less cars, less wear and tear, less pollution into the environment. Improving community health and fitness levels, achieving equity, making more walkable and bikeable, solving parking problems. Be much better off if we had a van stop downtown with 10 people in it than 10 cars go down there. Enhancing community safety, less cars, and also making that more affordable. And I think when we talk about this, like going from 200 Corner Parkway to the downtown, a nice shuttle is very affordable. It's part of the deal when you go in there. You don't have to drive around and find a parking space. You don't have to pay for gas. You don't have to pay wear and tear in your car. And maybe less people will buy cars. So let's talk about emboldening. We have been emboldened. There have been some current, although sporadic, transportation demand management items in Wakefield. The 200 Corner Powered Parkway, MBTA stations in downtown. So how do we build on this? how do we build on what's maybe happening on Audubon Road and bringing those businesses into the downtown, not only to get lunch at some of our favorite places, but so we don't have 10 cars coming down there. We're going to talk about the bike ped plan. That certainly is part of transportation demand management. Not going to belabor that today, which everyone will be very happy with, I'm sure. And in Vision 2030 in the master plan, they do talk about transportation demand management as a part of this whole thing. So that's nothing that is, a mystery to us at this point. So, future transportation demand management in Wakefield. The first one, which is in no particular order, unbundle parking, separate cost of parking for the cost of renting, leasing, or ownership. I got to say, this is one that we really need to study, and I would hope that the Transit Advisory Committee would do this, because there are people that want to purchase or rent in a residential unit on the train, on the bus routes, that don't necessarily want a car, don't want to be charged to have a parking space in the garage. They don't want to pay extra for that, whether it's in their regular rent or their monthly rent. There are some condo developments that will only come with one parking spot for you, and you can buy a second one at your option for extra money. So when I think about these two different ways of looking at transportation, there are some conflicts. There are people that want to buy that condo with two cars and want to put their car on the public way in areas where maybe we have restricted parking in the downtown. So we have to think about those things, and that's what a great thing a Transit Advisory Committee might be able to flush those things that don't work with those. And certainly want to improve walking conditions, and we're seeing a lot of that right now with much better sidewalks. You have the multi-use path in front of the Galvin. How is that going to affect, will more people from the North Ward take their bike to schools? I think they will. And you'll have less traffic going to the Galvin. Bicycle parking. We require under our zoning 1.5 parking spaces per bedroom. We don't have a bicycle requirement right now, bicycle parking space. I think that's something we should look to and come in at least our regulations, because to encourage that, because people maybe want to use that, but there's no place to put their bikes, either downtown at the schools or in the development where they're building. Board of Appeals does a great job now of looking at that and working with them, but it's not part of our requirements. We've talked about transit stops in the past. We have to fight back the MBTA that also wants to eliminate stops. That's been an issue going forward. We have to have better wayfinding. I love shuttle services for residents and employees. I think that's really something we need to work on, particularly when I'm thinking of Audubon Road or down by the lake. And I think if you're doing that reverse commute into the city, into Wakefield, then you're going to work on Audubon Road. And there's some really interesting businesses opening up there. Just a great new autism school opened up. That may be a great use of people that maybe are going to reverse commute, come in. A shuttle going to there would be great for them, but there's no regular bus service. Subsidized MBTA passes, we are already doing that through my office. And we do have a lot of young people, mainly going to school, that come in and take advantage of that, and it works out really good. I mentioned regionalization. I think we really should talk with better with Reading and Stoneham and Melrose. Real-time transportation information displays. Grayson Lofts, actually, there's a little picture of this here. Grayson Lofts is going to have that, or has that. A part of their process was, when are the trains coming? The train is on their way. People can maybe wait inside their lobby. It's a little bit warm, a little bit more comfortable than go over to the train station. And Transportation Advisory Committee that we did talk about. My final E is to ensure compliance. So I think the way that we do that is a project comes in or is presented. I think we have to have some way of determining whether this is a project that should have a transportation demand management plan. The applicant should submit that plan or an application to the Traffic Advisory Committee and Community and Economic Development Office to make sure it follows requirements for approval, and prior to the issuance of a special permit, with the Zoning Board of Appeals. We certainly want to work with them in our office to see what that could be done. And I think prior to occupancy, and here's the key, we need to ensure that these measures are in place. So if we have all of a sudden 200 people fill these units and this great plan that we all talked about isn't in place and the bike racks aren't there and there isn't, the shuttle service we talked about sharing isn't there, that's a disservice to the people that bought into it. And it's also a disservice to us who looked for that forward. And I also think that we have to have a yearly report. How are they doing? How are we doing? What can we do better? So I think that this is very brief overview that I think we should think about going forward. I think it's best that we maybe work through the Safe Streets Working Group and get them together with the Chamber of Commerce and other groups to do that in the beginning, as far as the Traffic Advisory Committee is concerned. Transit Advisory Committee. And then work with the Traffic Advisory and Zoning Board and Planning Board on the other items. So very, very brief kind of thoughts on this, and welcome any questions or feedback or thoughts. It's kind of a macro look of a micro issue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I have to say, I had reviewed this beforehand, and hearing your presentation, I feel like there are probably about 100 separate things here that we could focus on. And so, for the council, I view this as sort of the beginning of a thought process that I think will involve us and probably speaks to the, potential importance of having a transit advisory committee to try to dig into some of these issues and set some priorities. Again, there are about 100 things here that we went through in 5 minutes. We can't do 100 things at once, but, there may be some ideas that sort of rise to the top. So I hope, we'll kind of come out of this discussion,
With some action steps.
with some action steps on how to move forward, but also really probably a pretty large, no pun intended, parking lot of things that may be sort of secondary priorities that we may want to think about getting to at some point. So Councilor McLean, I'll let you
Steve,
chime
does
in.
the Stoneham Group have any teeth? Do they do anything with permitting? Because-
No, but they have advocacy.
I'll just say, that's what I thought we were talking about when we were talking about this. Now I'm seeing much more. So I just want to, just as I did with the naming policy as we got into it, give you a few of my thoughts for the future in this parking lot of ideas. I only see TDM really used in enforcement I see it in 3 places. I see it in Boston, I see it in Cambridge, and I see that it's something that the MAPC is interested in.
Watertown as well.
Well, there you go. There's a 4th. It looks to me like what I'm seeing, though, is more than what I thought I was going to see. It may not be, it is new to me. TDM is new to me. What the heck is this thing? This traffic, whatever management. It seems to cover everything, and I can't say anything bad about anything, reduced emissions. I'd rather be more specific, though. If we want to improve walkability, then let's do a few more sidewalks. But what it seemed to be coming down to, as I looked through the materials, was maybe something that would require, permitting, that this is where you go first. And that's much more similar to the Boston and Cambridge models. And I'm not so sure I'd be on board with that, but there's a lot to discuss.
Yeah.
I certainly might be on board to, consider doing some microtransit, doing specific items, but it looked to me like this was a lot more than that. And that's why I'm saying I just have some concerns.
No, there's nothing there that's actionable today. It's
Right.
all kind of given.
I'm just
a
putting
big
it
wall
out
of wax.
there.
Yep.
So somebody later doesn't say, what do you mean? You know all about TDM. I don't yet. That's all.
Yep, no, absolutely. And again, just to reinforce, this was intended to be sort of
Yeah.
the start of a very,
Right.
very long
Right.
set of discussions
Right.
that I think we'll have to have
But
on
we are
this.
doing subsidies already? I did not even know that. We do transit subsidies?
No,
did you say?
what was subsidized, the 200 corner Powit needs to do it as part of their approval.
Right, and I thought that was a little misleading too on the slide, no offense, but it kind of said the ZBA is implementing this. We got that from FOLQ, is my understanding, these conditions.
Well, but it was part of the decision.
Right, but it makes it look like we're implementing TDM. And I'm just saying, I don't see that happening.
In that instance, we are.
Across
We're
the-
a portion of TDM, I think we are.
Right, well, hopefully we'll
Yeah.
get that shuttle, and
Yeah.
hopefully it'll be very active.
Right.
And it will stick around.
And just to clarify, we do actually, we are participating, I think, in at least one program where we're subsidizing MBTA passes for young people.
Yeah, but
I
we're-
think there's
but-
a senior program as well.
Yeah,
that
but we're We're the conduit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've sort
not-
of opted
yeah.
into these programs that
Right,
the
but we're
MBTA
not expending town
Yeah,
funds on it.
we're just facilitating it.
facilitating
Right, that's why when
But
I see
I
a
just
one-
want to make sure
Right.
that that's
Right, right, right,
clear
right.
as well.
When I see a one-liner like that, I'm like,
Yeah.
well, where's
Yeah.
the money come from?
Right.
Is it town money? Is it
That's,
ARPA money?
it's
Yeah,
our time.
right, right, okay.
Councillor Butt, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I really love this discussion. I think it's something I've been talking about for a couple of years now, just to have the conversation. And I love thinking about the bigger, I love thinking about the new development. I think it's really important, Steve, Jonathan said it, that there's so many places to go with this. Just like 2 examples of this past week, the commuter rail, they're doing construction on our commuter rail. I think they started September and it's going through November, so 2 months. It is taking people 2 hours to get home on the bus via Oak Grove. And if for those of us that park at Oak Grove, if you're not there by 6:45 a.m., you don't get a parking spot. And there's just got to be a better solution. And I know we always try with the MBTA, but if there's something that we could do for residents, and be thoughtful, and also that partnership with people from Linfield or Reading or Stoneham going there. But I think those are people, myself included. I leave for the Oak Grove at 5:30 in the mornings when I have to go to Boston because I'm scared not to get a parking spot there, and I just can't take 2 hours to get home in the evening. And that's 2 months worth of people's time. So I've gotten a couple of comments from constituents about that problem. So something to look at, because people are choosing to move to Wakefield because of the buses and the commuter rail. But when those fail, then what are we doing to help them? So something to think about. And then the other thing is, I get probably a call a month from somebody who is not driving, usually a senior, and they try to reach out to the senior center to get to a doctor's appointment, but the hours are kind of town hours. And as most of us know, that's not when your doctor's appointments are. So they tend to be earlier, later, sometimes on the weekends. And so I think that's something also is I think the services that we have to think about, when the requests are coming in, and how that would be helpful. And again, those are, not people moving to kind of the new developments, but the people that already live here. But, and that I probably get a call every other month about that. And they've tried the senior center, but their appointment's too early and the shuttle doesn't go that early. They sometimes call the ride and the ride doesn't work either. So some things to think about. I think this is great. I think it's a great conversation. I love thinking about kind of the shuttle for the bigger developments and thinking about that. But I think there's ways that we can think about just like the MBTA passes of people that already live here and how we can make their life easier. And something I don't think I saw it in your slide, Steve, but I know we've talked about it, is that, after school bus that you had when you were a student. And I think that with the new high school, what a great thing that we could do for, to cut down traffic and to kind of have a late bus that drops people off in locations throughout town. So something I'd love to look at that too.
Thank you. I can't believe I forgot the late bus.
I know, that was like a highlight. I love that idea.
I will say there are other communities that do that, particularly in this day and age where so many students are, doing extracurriculars and sports, and I've seen precedents of that elsewhere. Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Chair Chines. I'm quickly running out of steam. I came down with COVID and the symptoms are pretty bad. So, Steve, I apologize that I didn't get a chance to ask you these questions before the meeting, which I normally try to do. But under the future TDM efforts in Wakefield, you have a transportation advisory committee. Is that different from the transit advisory committee? That they would actually be
No,
two different?
that would be the same one. Same thing.
The same, okay.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, I did do a little bit of research today. I did notice that the reason some of these other municipalities has some teeth into their TDM is because Cambridge has an ordinance on this and Watertown has bylaws.
Yep.
And other municipalities in Massachusetts have that as well. That's just good to think about for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Other questions or comments? Councilor Dombrowski.
I'm going to address this micro transit issue at a macro level, and I'll say that we are a town, we are not a city, and I continue to hear all of these ideas that are great fits for the infrastructure that cities have, not that our community has. I mean, I look around this table now and I see 6 people who are going to be leaving this meeting, going to the parking lot, getting into their vehicles and driving home, because that's how you get around Wakefield primarily. I'm not saying it's the only way you can do it, nor am I saying that the idea of shuttles from 200 Quantipout and the like, don't make sense. But this idea that we are constantly trying to figure out ways to eliminate vehicles from people's daily routines in a community like Wakefield doesn't make a lot of sense. When 200 Quantipout was developed as it was, why was it? Because of its proximity of 93 and 128 crossing. When we have the property values that are skyrocketing in Wakefield, why is that? Because of our proximity to the highway system. We have a commuter rail that runs infrequently. We are not on a subway line. My colleague mentioned about driving to Oak Grove. Well, you're driving to Oak Grove in order to even connect to a subway. That's just the reality of how it is here. We talk about fighting the MBTA, for bus lines and elimination or removal of stops. Well, why is that? Because the MBTA has done a calculus that there isn't the popularity or the demand to justify the cost of the routes that they're running. That should be an indication to us. I mean, when we're fighting to try to keep just a current infrastructure in place, and those that do this kind of analysis are determining that it's not a justified, continuation of resources, that should give us pause. Ultimately, we don't have a grid system. We don't have infrastructure in Wakefield. Like, our streets are not a grid. We have winding roads, and every time we talk about a new development, it's a unique circumstance because the street is the longest dead end in town and all the rest. That's not you're not going to get from Stark Ave anywhere. Like, let's be candid about this. So while I appreciate the innovation, and of course, yeah, if we can have less vehicles and if people want to bike or carpool or do whatever, I mean, the carpool lane going into Boston in the morning is the least traveled of the 3 lanes. And in fact, when the carpool restriction was lifted, that actually eliminated a lot of the traffic congestion for everyone heading into the city. So, this idea of carpooling is not new. Carpool lanes are not new. Van pooling, all these things. I mean, we've been talking about these for probably decades upon decades. It goes back to the 80s, 70s, whatever the case is. But we can't lose sight about what our primary function is here as a community, and that is we are a bedroom suburban community outside of Boston. People rely upon their vehicles to get around primarily. People will continue to need to rely upon their vehicles, be it electric, hybrid, gas, diesel, whatever it is. That's just how people are going to get around. And I don't want to be under any illusions that suddenly the MBTA is going to become like the subway, where you can get on one stop, get off the next, grab your groceries, get your medicine, and go to Target and then come back. It's not that way. It's not going to be that way. That's not how the commuter rail is designed. We don't have the subway infrastructure. So I think we have to be very thoughtful about who we are, not what we are looking to drop into here. I don't see this much differently than Stark Ave. It was a beautifully designed project that didn't fit the location we're looking to put it in. We talked about that an hour and a half ago. Now I think, again, we're talking about this plan that may work very well for Boston or Cambridge or Watertown, but we are not Boston, Cambridge, or Watertown. We're Wakefield. We have different demands. We have different limitations. And I think we have to also respect the fact that people come here and move here for a reason, and vehicles are a part of that. And that has to be a part of this discussion too. We're talking about advocates. I can't think of another committee, board, or commission where we've appointed advocates for something. Advocacy is outside of what we would be appointing as a council. We're looking for people that are going to be objective-minded, looking at different issues. And yeah, I mean, are there elements to this that we should consider? Absolutely, of course. I'm not naive enough to say we can't look at multimodal transportation. I've been working on Envision since 2018 just with that in mind. But this idea that we're somehow going to transplant what we're doing as a car-centric community here in Wakefield and change it into something that is revolutionarily different, It's not going to happen, nor do I think it's the will of the majority of the people who chose to live here. Thank you.
Other questions? Councillor Danahy?
I mean, I understand that. I see this as augmenting and providing alternatives. Like one thing, and I think that we do have to be really mindful in terms of putting a lot of investment in this, that we do it, that it's a gradual rollout so that we can measure it. Like one question I had was, I love the idea of calling the van on command, and getting rides. I think it's a great idea. My question is, I don't know whether it would be used. So do we have any other communities to know whether that's been successful in other communities? The only example I have is in Rye, England. My friend has a house there, and in Rye, England, they have the community van, and it is used, and they have somebody who manages it. I don't know if we have any examples here, and maybe that would be a good test, is the development at the head of the lake that has that shuttle requirement, if maybe they could be a good neighbor to us and try it out to see whether or not it could be successful and something that we'd want to expand on. I think that would be important. And I think also an effort is that the school buses, our students don't take buses to school. We have a very low ridership. And most parents drive their children to school. I know that we're trying to encourage more walking to school, but I think we should also encourage more busing to school. A lot of communities, it's just the norm that they take the bus. I don't think that's the way here. And I do think that a shuttle, I think that if we could encourage our businesses, the big businesses that we have, to have shuttles to pick up people from the train. I know that businesses, this just happened in my real job. It was, they were saying that when they were based in a suburb, they couldn't get people to work for them because of the transportation. People wouldn't go out there. It was interns. They couldn't get interns because they have no way of getting there. So I think that could be good. And the other thing is that I do think that this is kind of, does improve our quality of life, because if we can reduce, traffic in Wakefield is rough. It's traffic anywhere in this whole area is really rough. And so if we can reduce that a little bit, I think that'll make a difference, especially as we have more housing that we really don't have any control over. So I think efforts to do that, does make sense. The other thing in terms of the community benefit, I have dealing with aging parents or aging in-laws who live in very beautiful, bucolic communities. They can't get anywhere. My father-in-law can't drive, and it's brought in him great depression, and I've tried to call him, like, well, don't you have a senior center? No senior center. Anybody that can get him a ride anywhere. And he doesn't have that opportunity. So I think that, and it's not just elderly who don't drive, but other people who don't drive, to be able to have them to have the flexibility to be able to go places. I think that that's a good community service. But I do think as we think about this plan, I think that if you're looking at any kind of behavioral change, you need to make it very easy for people. It needs to be accessible, and there needs to be something that would motivate them to change that behavior. Because, if it's hard, they're not going to do it. And I do think that we're talking about a small percent, but I think that small percent could make a difference. So, that would be my thing, is that just make sure that we have a benefit to motivate them. And just while we're talking about it, subsidized MBTA, I'm not in favor of us giving subsidized MBTA. The MBTA should be subsidizing.
Yeah, we don't.
Good,
Yeah,
okay.
So they
don't
are
spend any.
subsidizing it.
Yeah.
We administer it.
We administer it.
Fine administrating it, but, the whole MBTA, don't even get me started on that, but I won't even get started, so.
So are you suggesting, Councilor Danhe, that we go to England and check this out?
I think we should. I think we
Okay.
should. We should go to Rye. It's a seaside town.
Okay.
Well, they've got a van in Salem, Mass.
They
They're
do.
a little bigger than we are, and they have made it work, but they're a city and they may have more resources. I don't know how
But
they
I
do
think if
that.
we could do something, I think it's a really interesting idea. If we could just, if we're demanding that the development at the head of the lake have a shuttle service for driving people to the train, it seems like they're gonna have a lot of time in between, that maybe we could partner with them just to do a test to see if this could be successful or not. I don't know if it is. I would be very hesitant to invest town resources
We're-
into this.
We have to walk before we run.
Yeah.
Right. But thank you. No, these are all great comments.
Yeah, I mean, I think the intention, again, of this is to start a longer set of conversations. I mean, this is not
Right.
suggesting that we take something from Cambridge and flop it in Wakefield. It's not suggesting that we do, the 100 different ideas that were kind of presented here, but it was to sort of start the conversation, to address something that I think is an issue. One of the biggest complaints I hear from residents is about traffic. And, while we historically have been a community that's relied on, single occupancy vehicle trips, the reality is that, as the population of the greater Boston area increases, that is going to create more traffic unless we change that dynamic in some way or find ways to sort of nibble at the edges here. And I like the way you phrase that, Councillor Danhe, of, if you do a couple of things that make a little bit of a difference, like together, that can actually make a pretty big impact on quality of life. Reflecting on some of the things, Steve, that you presented, one opportunity that I would love to see us thinking about as some of these things sort of become more mature are weaving together some of these micro-transit options. So we have, Lake Quannapow, when that comes into play, is there a way of tying that into our senior center shuttle? Because maybe that's a way to kind of increase service for both of those populations. And do we tie that into Audubon Road or something in Reading? If you have a lot of sort of micro transit grids kind of operating independently that aren't kind of coordinating with the others, that probably is an indication that we're not, allocating resources effectively. So that'd be something that I'd like to see. We've talked a lot about, seniors who aren't able to drive, and I think, Councillor Danhe, you kind of shared a story that I think demonstrates that. But, we should also be talking to young people about this. I will tell you as a parent, between my wife and I, on an average weekday, we probably do 8 to 10 vehicular trips during the day, just shuttling our kids back and forth to different places. There might be a better way for that, whether it's the late bus or something else. And would encourage us to think about maybe engaging the youth council in these discussions as well. So as I think about where to go from here, it feels to me like there is enough for us to think about, and there's enough work that comes into developing what might be a community appropriate actionable agenda that I do think maybe it's worth thinking about putting together an advisory committee. And Mr. maybe if we could ask you to put some thought into how that committee might be formed, what it might look like, what a charter for that committee might be. Maybe we can bring that back to the council for further discussion at a later date.
Sounds good. Thank you.
I don't know if anyone has any objections to that approach.
Well, I mean, we'll discuss it at the time.
Yeah, no, this is, again, trying to sort of take what is a problem, an issue that is this big, and figure out how we narrow it down. All right. Well, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Mayo. I think
Thank you very much.
we've given you some more work as always. But again, good start of the discussion and first of many to come. All right, moving on. Item number 12A, appointments to the Arts Council. I believe, Sherry, we have one open spot on the Arts Council.
I believe we have a couple, but that is that's one that we received in.
Okay, one applicant then. All right. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve
Lindsay Reardon.
Lindsay Reardon, her application to become a member of the Arts Council.
Second?
Any discussion? All right, seeing none, the motion is to appoint Lindsay Reardon to the Arts Council for a term of, Sherry, 3 years? Is that the spot that we are filling?
Let me just do a quick check on that. So there are two spots available for unexpired terms. One is April 30th, 2024, and the other one is April 30th, 2025. So whichever one you guys decide.
I would suggest
We'll go
maybe
with.
the term expiring 2025.
Yes. So moved.
All right, and seconded by Counselor Dombrowski. Further questions, discussion? No. Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Counselor Vincent?
Yes.
Counselor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Dennehy?
Yes.
Counselor McLean?
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski?
Aye.
And myself, yes. So that's 6-0, again, through April of 2025. Item 12B, appointments to the Affordable Housing Trust. Counselor Vincent, do you want to speak to this for a moment?
Thank you, Chair Shines. Chair Shines and I have communicated on this. I move that the town council postpone appointing the 3 Affordable Housing Trust Fund trustee positions on tonight's agenda until our meeting on November 13th.
Second.
And Counselor Vincent, if you want to speak just to the rationale for that.
Thank you, Chair Shines. If you recall, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund has 9 trustees. The Town Council, Planning Board, Finance Committee, Council on Aging, Housing Authority, and Commission on Disability Issues, and then the 3 other members. And the applicants we got tonight are the 3 other at-large members, or members of the community. Article 3 of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund states that the terms are for 2 years, except 3 of the initial appointments shall be for 1 year. Ultimately, the Town Council is going to make all 9 appointments, but we have to wait until we get nominations or recommendations from the Planning Board, Finance Committee, Council on Aging, Housing Authority, and Commission on Disability Issues. Sherry, correct me if I'm wrong, but as of the other day, only the Council on Aging has submitted a recommendation to us. She sent a reminder to the other boards, committees, and commissions, reminding them to submit their recommendations. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So given the October schedule for the planning, for these other committees, given their October schedule, I don't believe we would receive their nominations by our October 16th meeting. We can reasonably assume that we will receive them by our November 13th meeting date. That means the earliest that we can appoint all 9 Affordable Housing Trust members is probably November 13th. Where this gets problematic, if we appoint these folks tonight, we're going to have to make a determination of which of these members are going to be appointed for 2 years, which of these members are going to be appointed for 1 year, or we're going to do some combination thereof. The other problem is if we appoint these people tonight and their effective date is October 2nd, but the earliest that we can appoint the other members is November 13th, then these people for at least a month and a half between now and November 13th would be appointed, and their effective date would be today, but they wouldn't be able to serve on a fully constituted Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And what I would emphasize is that if we appointed somebody tonight for 1 year, they in essence would only serve 10 and a half months because the effective date of the trust fund meeting or being fully constituted would be November 13th. The last note I make is for Sherry. Sherry would now have to keep track of different expiration dates. She would have to keep track of the 3 people appointed tonight if they had October 2nd appointment dates, and then separately keep track of the remaining people who will be appointed on November 13th or some later date. So it kind of leaves us in a quandary. We either consider appointing all 9 people at our November 13th meeting, or we can appoint these people tonight, but make the effective date November 13th. In looking at that, I thought maybe the more prudent thing would just be to postpone appointing these folks until November 13th. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Vincent, and absolutely, definitely a simplified conversation if we do this all in one fell swoop. Any discussion or questions, Counselor Dabrowski?
Can I just ask, so I know we have one like past deadline applicant. Can we just make a determination about how we want to handle that applicant tonight, so we know going forward whether we're talking about a pool of 3 or 4 people here?
Sure. Can we hold on that
Of course.
just to dispose of this motion and then
Sure.
come back to that? Other comments or questions? All right, the motion is to postpone the appointments to the Affordable Housing Trust until November 13th. Roll call vote, Counselor Vincent,
Yes.
Counselor Butt,
Yes.
Counselor Dennehy,
Yes.
Counselor McLean,
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski,
Aye.
and myself, yes. So Counselor Dombrowski, with regard to the late applicant.
So I truly don't have a strong feeling either way. I just think we should determine tonight whether someone who I guess had applied late is in the mix for our consideration in November. So I think we should, as a body, just determine whether that's, whether we're allowing for somebody who applied late to be considered or not. And I don't care either way. So I don't even feel like I want to make a motion one way or the other because I'm so indifferent about it.
Well, the 4 applicants, Steve, were one was from an existing committee, or is it from ZBA, correct? So would the other three,
Yes.
would the other 3 all be the potential at-large folks?
Yeah, I'd say that's one way of looking at it, yes.
So, well,
I don't think so.
the
Counselor
ZBA person,
Vincent.
the ZBA person would be an at-large because the ZBA does not have a designated spot. on the
Okay,
trust.
okay.
I mean, I guess perhaps my suggestion would be, I understand that the person did submit late, given that we're waiting another month plus, maybe we put them into the mix to give us more optionality here. But again, I don't have a strong feeling about this. I just think we should know going into that.
Sherry, do you have a sense as to when the application was submitted relative to the deadline?
Yeah, I think he did it the next day.
Okay.
So he was close.
All right, so in that case, I'll make a motion that we consider this additional late application in the mix at our November meeting relative to the appointments.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Counselor Vincent,
Yes.
Counselor Butt,
Yes.
Counselor Dennehy,
Yes.
Counselor McLean,
Yes.
Counselor Dabrowski,
Aye.
and myself, yes. All right, thank you. We'll move on to item number, sorry, if there's nothing else on this one.
Just to be clear, so he or she, I don't
Just
know,
in the pool.
Just in the pool.
Yep.
All right, so
Yep.
yes.
All right, moving on. Item number 13, Division 2 regulations. Mr. Mullen. I see regulations, and I think this is a great place for you to talk.
I live for regulations. So anybody who's ever looked through the code of the town of Wakefield has probably come away tearing their hair out, trying to understand the organization. You jump from a charter to the bylaws, which are broken down between administrative and general, whatever that means, and then you go to what is called Division 2, Division 3, and it looks as if we're talking about other kinds of bylaws. But in fact, when they go to Division 2, Division 3, and so forth, they're actually dealing with regulations issued by regulatory boards, such as the ZBA, the Planning Board, and this council, or its predecessor, the Board of Selectmen. So one thing that we might want to do to try to regularize this is to look at the town council regulations that are in this book to see which of them actually should become bylaws and to present them to a future town meeting. And that may be all of them. That it may be that there's no need to treat them as regulations and they would have greater legal dignity or weight if they were passed by a town meeting. So, excuse me, I've had discussions with the chair and with Vincent, and I think that this is the direction we want to go in, but I wanted to see what your council would like to do.
So I think the question here before the council is if we want to instruct Mr. Mullen and Mr. Mayo to review the Division 2 bylaws. Those are the bylaws that have been promulgated by predecessors of our board to determine, A, if there are any revisions that we may want to consider as a board, and B, whether we would want to put forth a warrant article to have them recodified as bylaws. This sort of came up when we were talking about signage at our last meeting, because we were relating to and we were referring back to different regulations that kind of sit in this no man's land where it wasn't at least clear to me, and I know appreciate Councillor Vincent's legal education on this as well, and Mr. Mullins' education. Some question as to whether they have the effective bylaw or not. And so the intent here would be to, again, assign some homework to the town administrator and town council to review what's in Division 2 and come back with recommendations around, again, any clarifying changes or recodification that we may want to consider to, sort of better clarify and better sort of explain to the community what's actually in these provisions. And Councillor Vincent, I'll invite you to make any other comments that you may want to relay from the conversation that you and I had.
No, I think that sums you and Mr. Mullen have summed it up quite well.
Thank you. And I apologize. We're going back to you for a lot of things late in the meeting when I knew you were under the weather.
The one aside I'll note, for instance, hawkers and peddlers is one of those regulations, and yet we have a door-to-door solicitor. Door-to-door solicitors are bylaws. So that's a prime example as to why, door-to-door solicitors would be a bylaw, and hawkers and peddlers, which is somewhat akin to that, would be a regulation. So that's a good reason to look at this and see whether some of these, there's three: alcoholic beverages, hawkers and peddlers, and traffic rules and orders, whether they should become bylaws instead of regulations. Thank you.
Councillor Butt, did you have your hand up? Nope. Okay.
Does
Councillor McLean?
this also involve traffic advisory, or is that at a later date?
Well, we're one of the three categories of town council regulations is traffic rules and orders.
I am aware.
Right.
Right, so would that be, would you be a two-step process that you gentlemen are gonna look at it and then advise the council whether these are really good for bylaws? And then if they are, that there would be discussion with, because I've referred to this Schedule 1 that has all the overnight parking in town and seems to have some things missing and mistakes. I mean, is that gonna be part of this process, or is
I
that?
think it'd be part of the process.
Part of the
I
process.
think so. Back, but
Okay.
seems to be more comprehensive.
Right.
So,
right.
Mr. Mayo, you would work with your staff as appropriate on different sections of the of what you're reviewing and bring that all back to us as something to consider.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the clarification.
Other questions or comments? So I guess I'd ask for a motion to instruct the town administrator to review the Division 2 regulations with a goal of presenting to the town council a recommended set of revisions as well as recommendations for recodification as bylaws to be considered at a future town meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second? Further discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Councillor Butt?
Yes.
Councillor Vincent?
Yes.
Councillor Danahy?
Yes.
Councillor McLean?
Yes.
Councillor Dombrowski?
Aye.
And myself, yes. So more homework for you, Mr. Mayo. All right, item number 14A, donations to the Council on Aging for $75 from various donors with thanks. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Councillor Butt?
Yes.
Councillor Vincent?
Yes.
Councillor Danahy?
Yes.
Councillor McLean?
Yes.
Councillor Dombrowski?
Aye.
And myself, yes. 14B, donations in the amount of $29,370 to the BB Library from various donors with significant thanks for that great amount. Do we have a motion to accept?
So moved with the notation that over 28,000 of that came from the Friends of BB Library.
Second.
Great. Any discussion? Other than, again, our great thanks to the Friends of BB Library for the great work that they do and the just truly incredible support for the library. I mean, we talk about how the library is such a tremendous asset for the town, and the Friends are one group that makes that possible. Seeing no other discussion, we'll take a roll call vote, excuse me. Councillor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Vincent,
Yes.
Counselor Danahy,
Yes.
Counselor McLean,
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski,
Aye.
and myself, yes. 6-0, motion carries. Item 15A, do we have a motion to grant a common victualler and entertainment license for Mojo Sushi located at 316 Main Street?
So moved.
Second?
Great. Any discussion? I'll just say I'm very excited for them to be opening up. Great addition to downtown. We'll take a roll call vote. Counselor Butt,
Yes.
Counselor Vincent,
Yes.
Counselor Danahy,
Yes.
Counselor McLean,
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski,
Aye.
and myself, yes. 6-0, motion carries. In item 15B, I'll take a motion to approve a one-day liquor license for Idle Hands Craft Ales for Town Day on October 7th, 2023, from 1 p.m. until 4 p.m.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? I assume, Mr. Mayo, obviously, we're working with the police department.
Yep.
We'll have
Fingerprints and all that.
fingerprints
Yep,
and
it's all been, that's all been done.
great
It's all
bracelets
done.
for
Yep.
wonderful.
And I should just ask too, that non-alcoholic beverage options.
They're having a non-alcoholic beer, they're telling us.
Great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Among other.
Among other non-alcoholic options,
available
yeah.
to people,
Yeah.
but
And we have other vendors there as
Other
well
vendors
that'll be
too, they're
selling
telling other
food and
people.
drink too.
They're bringing a non-alcoholic
Mhm.
beer this year.
Great. All right, we'll take a roll call vote to grant the one-day liquor license. Counselor Butt,
Yes.
Counselor Vincent,
Yes.
Counselor Danahy,
Yes.
Counselor McLean,
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski,
Aye.
and myself, yes. 6-0, motion carries. Item number 16 is a resident request to fly the Christopher Columbus Christian flag for the month of October at the AmeriCall Civic Center. Do we have a motion on that request?
Move to consider the request.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Counselor?
I'll just say that I continue to maintain my policy of not approving any flag requests that are before us, because I do not think we should be in the business of calling balls and strikes for what flags should or should not be flying. So I will be voting against this as I do all other flag requests.
Other comments or questions from the council? Counselor Danahy?
Yeah, I would be voting against it because of the religious connotation, separation of church and state.
Great. Any other comments or questions from the council? Yes.
I agree with Councilor Danahy. There are over 4,000, estimated over 4,000 religions in the world. We are a very diverse nation, and we will be probably, I realize this is a bit different because it's Columbus, but we would be, we'll be doing these regularly. I hope to have at our next meeting a revised flag policy for our consideration that hopefully will clarify some matters, but we will see. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Other comments from the council? Hearing none. The motion on the table is to grant the request to fly the Christopher Columbus Christian flag. We'll take a roll call vote. Counselor Butt?
No.
Counselor Vincent?
No.
Counselor Danahy?
No.
Counselor McLean?
No.
Counselor Dombrowski?
No.
And myself, no. Motion fails 0-6. Item 17, approval of minutes for the September 11th, 2023 Town Council meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Great. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Counselor Butt?
Yes.
Counselor Vincent?
Yes.
Counselor Danahy?
Yes.
Counselor McLean?
Yes.
Counselor Dombrowski?
Aye.
And myself, yes. Motion carries 6-0. Item 18, announcements. Any announcements from the council?
We should probably announce the wave race again. Would you like to go with that, Councilor Dombrowski?
I was gonna
Counselor
say-
Dombrowski?
So this month is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, an important month in our town and across our country, certainly. And the Wakefield Alliance Against Violence is having its annual 5K road race and run and walk. It is Saturday, the 14th of October, and you can still sign up at WAV online.org. I think every year we have more and more participants. Let's make this year the most signed up for Race in History. It's a really important cause. They do really remarkable work, and a lot of the work that WAVE does you don't hear about, but it's tremendously impactful and oftentimes life-saving for members of our own community. So it's just such an important cause. So I'd encourage you to either sponsor. You can still sponsor online. Or if you can't sponsor and want to participate in any way, you can walk with a stroller, you can run, you can walk without a stroller, you can walk with friends. And we've even had like teams show up from the high school. It's been really encouraging. It's multi-generational, so and the weather should be fantastic. So please join us on the 14th. Thank you.
Importantly, Councilor Dabrowski, do we know what the T-shirt design is going to look like this year?
It's still under wraps. Yeah, not yet been released.
See what shade of the rainbow T-shirt to get this year. Thank you, Councilor McLean.
And to continue on that line of thought, I'd like to throw out a challenge. I know there's at least one police officer who can outrun me with a baby carriage. But any member of the police and fire that finishes ahead of this 65-year-old is going to get one beer.
Oh.
Speaking of idle hands.
All right. Thank you, Councilor Danahy.
I just want to remind everybody of Town Day on Saturday down at our lake. I'm looking forward to it, and I think that Steve, your office does such a fantastic job putting it together, and it's just it's a wonderful day for our community. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. They do a great job, and it's going to be a great day, including the weather.
Yes.
We have already declared that. I'm going to ask for a
Yes.
motion at the end. There'll only be sun on the common that day.
Yes,
so.
good. Thank
We have
you.
a little bit of
Thank
work
you.
to
A little bit
do
of work
based on the
to do.
forecast.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Butt or Councilor Vincent? Any announcements? Councilor Vincent?
Yeah, I'll still be in quarantine on Town Day, so you won't see me there. But I did want to mention that on October 25th is the Senior Resource Fair that the Council of Aging is putting on at the McCarthy Senior Center. Things like flu shot, blood pressure screenings, fuel assistance information. The assessor's office is going to be there, BB Library, Veteran Services, Amy Rando is going to be there from the police department, fire chief's going to be there. A whole bunch of information. It's going to be between 10 a.m. and 1 o'clock, once again on October 25th. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Councilor Butt, anything? Just a couple of things to add to that. So first of all, speaking of the Senior Resource Fair, I did have the opportunity to sit in on a presentation that our town assessor, Victor Santinello, gave to the Mass Municipal Association last week, where he mentioned that so far in Wakefield this year, we've had 253 applications for the Senior Property Tax Exemption Program. That's actually the highest number we've ever had. So really, first of all, I want to thank Victor and the folks at the Senior Center for spreading the word about that. And also, again, to encourage people, if you think you may be eligible, even if you're not sure, please reach out and please talk to our team so that if you are eligible, we can make sure that you take advantage of that program. And really am glad to see that it's something that so many residents are receiving a benefit from. I do want to acknowledge here at Wakefield Community Access TV a little bit of a changing of the guard. So former Executive Director Ryan Boyd has left us. Not that we're holding a grudge or anything, but apparently he found a job that's like closer to home and has regular hours, and could definitely imagine why, as a parent of young children, that holds some appeal to him. But I want to acknowledge Ryan's work for our community. Even as someone who didn't live here, he really poured his heart and soul into Wakefield, and we will miss him. And also do want to congratulate Ian McDermott, who is taking over as our new executive director here at WCAT. So Ian is in the room now. We'll give him a round of applause. He keeps us live and has been a longstanding stalwart here at WCAT. So Ian, congratulations and thank you for your great work. We will. He leaves big shoes to fill. So. And then finally, just wanted to mention that the lineup for Parents University has been posted. And this is really another one of the hidden gems of Wakefield. Great opportunity to really dig into a number of important topics related to students and young people in our community. Check out the website online and check out the lineup there. Those are all free events. They're all open to the public. And as someone who's participated before, they really are incredible. So thank you for the team that organizes that. And again, encourage folks to check that out. Moving on, Mr. Mayo, any announcements on your end?
Nope, I was going to talk about Town Day, but Councilor
Great.
Green, he did so.
So we will see you on the 7th for Town Day. Item 19, matters not anticipated for the agenda. Anything from the council? Nope, seeing none, we will move to item number 20, adjournment. Our next town council meeting will be Monday, October 16th at 7 p.m. Plenty of time to recover from the Wave 5K for those of you that are doing that. And I will take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
All right. Is there any objection from the town council? Seeing none, we are officially adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. We'll see you on Saturday. Fingers crossed for good weather, and have a great night.